Okay. Let's see. Make sure everything is up and running. Looking good. Looking good here. Good there. All right. Now we're just waiting for close quarter Wombat to arrive. To have arriving. Wow. There's a possible Skyward Sword Switch port. I mean, I heard it off of Jared's researched list here. I mean, not this very second. We're not talking about it quite yet. Um, but yes, if you want to, you may NDI me your thing, but otherwise, it is not necessary. Okay, take your time. Yes. All right. Wow. Just hide that for a second, so it's not there. Okay. Well, if I mean, if you want to be in the Discord call, then I will just mute it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Oh, I see what happened.
Hello?
Oh, hello.
Oh, is that just you rejoining?
No, it should be the Jared, I think.
Oh, no, Jared's in here.
Yep, probably just fighting with his audio. He has the existential audio fighting problem.
I think it's more the existential forgetting to turn the microphone on problem.
Oh, that's fighting with audio in a way.
Do you want me
Just
to go
fighting
on
with it
camera,
on the
CJ?
hardware side.
Yeah, or on the user side.
If you would like to be on camera, that would be preferable. Yeah. Do you want to do
Yeah.
it? How do you
No,
want to
we're
be on
good.
camera?
Let me just grab. Let me grab my camera real quick. It's like kind of looped back because I was messing with stuff earlier,
Yeah, for sure.
and I can just I don't know. We'll figure it out. I can zoom, or we can try NDI again, something like that.
Yeah,
I'll be
Zoom
right back.
might be easiest, but yeah, go grab it. Properties. Restore.
Why is my ping so high? My ping is 400 and my sending is 0, which is even worse.
Really?
Yeah, look at that. Sending 0, receiving 603.
Huh. Well, hopefully it's not an internet issue and it is just a Final Fantasy internet issue.
I think it might be an internet issue. Given that I opened Google and I just saw a line of text that said Google for long enough to notice that that's what happened.
Oh man, we're gonna have to restart this stream already. That would be really. All right, our down says it's 110 right now. Why is this not showing up correctly? There we go. Not sure why that made a difference, but it sure did. Welcome back, Jared.
What's that gone?
I don't know, but you said you were going to evaporate for a moment and go grab your webcam. So I assume that meant you left.
Oh, then yes, I am back. I'm waiting for Zoom to connect. It says, please wait. Oh, it's waiting for you to start it.
Yes, I had yet to get that going.
How dare you?
I'm pretty terrible. What can I say?
I thought you were going to say I'm pretty daring.
All right, start that. And then we're going to go here to other participants. And it should be good to go. Jared person liked the stream. Man, the stream hasn't even really started yet. Calm down, people. All right, it says Zoom is up, so waiting on the acknowledgement of your Zoom. Oh, Fang, how are you?
Hi, Fang.
Zoom gets so offended when you don't use Zoom for your audio.
It's true.
It has to be like 3 times.
My
It's like, are
favorite-
you really sure you don't want to use Zoom for your audio? I'm like, I've already hit yes like 3 times.
My favorite is I have a lot of morning meetings, so I'm frequently eating breakfast in them, and I'll have myself muted. And Zoom will be like, hey, did you know you're muted? Hey, they can't hear you. Nobody can hear you right now. Like, every time it detects audio and I'm muted. Where it's like, yes, I know. I in fact did this on purpose.
Like, believe it or not.
If I weren't making noise, I wouldn't need to mute myself.
Okay. Turn this on. Bam. It's a beautiful Jared head. All right. Well, I guess we can officially kick this off. I'm trying it without my pop mic for a while, see how it looks. I felt goofy with the pop mic and the foam thing on there.
You're probably good with just the foam.
Yeah. So anyway, I gave a sneak peek earlier about one of the things that Jared was speaking, or Jared put together a list of things for us to talk about today. And of course, if you guys want to put forth thoughts, ideas, or other things that you'd like to hear us talk about, please feel free to do that. It is not just, the shots are not just called by us, but we figured that since there's, 5 or 6 of you or something, and not everybody always wants to type, that we'd have our own list of things to talk about to stay on track, because otherwise we'll just meander down memory lane like days during high school or something. And,
And I'll be confused in the corner because I wasn't there.
Yep. So the possible Skyward Sword Switch port. What information do you have on that, Jared? Because that sounds like I never really got into Skyward Sword. Like, I literally own a copy around here somewhere, and I never got a chance to sit down with it.
So, Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword is when it was released, it was hailed as possibly the best Zelda ever released, like ever made. And I went back and played it like 2 or 3 years ago. And in my opinion, it holds up. Like, I played it on the Wii, like on my actual Wii. I didn't even use the Wii U or anything. And so it is a fantastic Zelda game. It was like one of the first times they kind of went way against the genre. It's just like, it's so different than the other Zelda games have been. And so they've been asking for a remake or a port or something for a while. And then it was listed for pre-order on Amazon and like available to like purchase a pre-order on Amazon. And this has happened before. um, with Nintendo products that haven't been announced yet, and then Nintendo turns around, it's like, oh yeah, it is, because Nintendo has like the most leaks of any company ever. For a company that's as secretive as Nintendo, they also have a lot of leaks because
Yeah.
that's probably like 100% their entire PR is probably just all handled through leaks, because then if it ends up not happening, they can just deny it. And so this leak coming out, it's like, it's as possible as any other leaks that have come out that have ended up being true. And it makes a lot of sense because, I mean, they're not making any games right now. And so, and I think the only other game they've really announced is Pikmin 3, which is from the GameCube, or was it from the Wii? I can't remember. But, it's another port. And so, if it's the one I'm thinking of, but yeah, there's like not a whole lot going on because of the quarantine and everything. So it makes sense. And people have been asking for this for years, and they haven't done one since Twilight Princess, I believe.
Yeah, Twilight Princess was the last HD remake.
Yeah. And so this one just makes sense because Skyward Sword, like I said, it was
Well,
given, like, I think Metacritic gave it like across like the aggregating reviews, like gave it basically the highest reviews out of any modern like Nintendo Zelda release.
yeah.
So it was received very
I
positively.
I guess technically the last HD remake was Link's Awakening, but that one was so much more of an overhaul that it's in a different category in my head.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, this is probably a remaster like Twilight Princess rather than a whole remake, which is totally
Yeah.
fine because it's a beautiful game. It's gorgeous. It's like done using like a pastel watercolor kind of
Yeah.
look, and
Nice.
the game's the story is so much different than anything else because it's the first Zelda, and so it takes place like 2,000
Mhm.
years before any other Zelda game. And so you're on it's before the planet was even inhabited by like humanoids, basically. And so it takes place before all of that. And so it's really, really cool to see like the origins of everything. And it does a lot of really, really fun stuff. And probably the reason they didn't put it out yet is because it relied so heavily on that like motion plus controller. And
Yeah.
it really does,
Yeah.
like your sword, like you'll fight enemies and you have to swing the nunchuck or the Wiimote in like the exact perfect place in order to like get through their armor or get through their blocks or their attacks and stuff like that. So it was very, very pinpoint. So they probably have held off until now so they could really spend some time like figuring out a way to make the system work with like joysticks and buttons again.
Yeah. Well, that definitely sounds interesting. Like I said, I haven't really had the chance to sit down with have Skyward Sword. Yes, I just said Heaven's Word. Um,
Well, I don't think you have the hardware to play it. Like, you have to get the little plus adapter.
Yeah.
It's required for the game.
yeah.
Yeah, it was that was the reason I actually originally bought the Motion Plus Wiimote. Because I first played Skyward Sword back in like 2012 or something like that. And then I played it again like 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. But yeah, it definitely holds up, but you have to use that or it will not work. And so you
Huh.
might be able to emulate it, but I'm not sure how well that would work with it. But that's another boost for the Switch version because they might include like a classic mode where you can use um, the Switch controllers as like the Wiimote Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they're like how in depth those motion controls are because I just don't use them that much. But if they're strong enough, then it could just be a straight port with like retextures and that's it.
Yeah, they're really good. They we've done some motion stuff with them before and they work really well.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, like I played Mario Kart with them, but that's not something high precision.
What? How dare you?
I'm just saying that the motion controls don't have to be high precision.
For Mario Kart?
Yeah,
That's like
the original Wii controller was able to do Mario Kart with motion controls.
that's a very important game. How dare you slander its
CJ's
I'm
so
not
offended.
slandering it. I'll slander you with Mario Kart.
CJ's so bad. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I do kind of hope that they take just like the hold the sword above your head out, because for some reason that was like the hardest thing to get. I could do the combat just fine, but then it was like hold the sword over your head, and I was like, are we really
Yeah.
doing this? Are you really gonna struggle with this?
Getting it to lock in for like the boost attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people complain about that actually.
Or when you got the upgrades, you had to do it, and then like those were the times that I could not get it to work. Was just when I was trying to upgrade. So it's like, guys, this isn't even something that I should have to be able to react for. Please just give me the upgrade.
Yeah.
It's true. It's very true.
That's funny.
But yeah, playing it with the motion controls would be really cool, because I do like motion controls when they're done well.
Well, I think that was one of the games where like the combat was really satisfying when it went right, because even just like it was more than just like vertical versus horizontal slices. Like it had to do with like how you held the sword in your hand, and you could like stab, and like you could parry, and there was like it was like you were actually it was
super cool.
It was kind of like a glimpse into like what VR was going to be in the future. And
Yeah.
it was really fun, and I hope they can kind of figure out a way to get it to work with joysticks and buttons, because if they don't, then every person that owns a Switch Lite is out. But also still keep the classic control scheme in there for people that want to use it, because I have a feeling it probably works better now than it did before.
Yeah, no,
Probably.
because that'll definitely shut out everybody that got a Switch Lite, and that was a lot of people's fallback during the during the beginning of the pandemic, when the Switches were in crazy high demand. They're in still pretty high demand, honestly. Like we were really lucky to find one at our local GameStop here in Aurora. But a lot of people fell back to that Switch Lite as like, well, I guess I'll just get a Switch Lite. I was probably thinking about it anyway,
Yeah.
So.
And the people that use like pro controllers plugged into their TV and stuff like that too, or people who just use it like you can't play on the bus, if you're using motion controls. So
yeah, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it and how they handle some of that stuff. I could see them. I honestly, because it's Nintendo, I could honestly see them being like, "Get good, nerd," and and being like, "Suck it up."
Sometimes I like that.
Yeah. And so we wouldn't have any buttons to play on, for it to be compatible with, and we'd just have to be, on our TV with our Joy-Cons or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I know they often don't learn from that kind of thing, but they saw a lot of backlash with the Wii and with the 3DS when they tried to say, "Oh, well, you need to have this version of the system or buy the upgrade." Like, there were people who were mad over Skyward Sword needing the Wii Plus remote. Like, there was an adapter and there was a controller, but people were real mad about the controller being a separate one. And then when they came out with the new 3DS, they wound up not making any games exclusively for it. I think Majora's Mask said it was going to be.
I think Xenosaga was one of, or Xenogears, whatever the one where they're on the giant creatures.
Yeah.
I think it's Xenoblade Chronicles. There we go. Xenoblade Chronicles was exclusive, but I think that's about it.
Yeah, it was Majora's Mask and Xenoblade, and then beyond the first batch of games that were for it, they were like, we don't know why everybody is so mad that we said, hey, we're releasing another console. And it's because they were terrible at naming things. Like, just accept that it's another console.
Yeah.
Don't call it the new 3DS, because
that got me so
say
hard.
That to someone and like, it's the same concept as going from a PS3 to a PS4, but they're just so bad at advertising that they saw tons of backlash for that kind of thing.
Yeah, they literally went from
Yeah.
like basically the PlayStation, yeah, like Zill said, the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 4 effectively, and then they're like, but it says new. I don't what? It was so weird.
Nintendo is so funny because they almost never listen to anyone else, but
Thank you,
then
thank you,
they
Tootsie
have like
Fruit. You and Renee are gonna make us hit 100 subs on YouTube. That would be phenomenal. We would be very excited.
so
Um,
Nintendo's so funny because they keep just kind of hitting it out of the park with their like they try the craziest things and sometimes it just is exactly what the world needs and then they kind of get validated and then they turn around and release like the Virtual Boy and everyone's like don't do it
Uh-huh.
and they're like oh well we're going to do it anyway or like the Wii U like everyone's like don't do it you already made this mistake once don't try to brand it as like this gaming powerhouse when it's not like keep doing
yeah,
what you do well and then and so like sometimes they listen sometimes they don't and the Switch is kind of one of the times they didn't listen and it worked really well but
well,
I mean that's gone the wrong way too before.
and the Wii U I felt like was a system of broken promises, right? Like I don't even care that it wasn't as powerful as they supposedly promised. But what really bothered me is like they like it was the I guess it was more like the implied promises of the system because the Wii U
Yeah.
there was so much potential with it where you could have like one person with their own screen like being the dungeon master on like a tower defense or like a dungeon crawler or like so many different kinds of games or even like a racetrack where like they're building the racetrack as you're racing it like like just all this really cool stuff and they just didn't just
Yeah.
nobody utilized the Wii U how it should have and could have been except for like some of the like release games those mini games they always release in like bundles of like 5 or
Mhm.
6 or whatever some of
Yeah.
those utilized the Wii U how it was supposed to be and they were tons of fun because I remember there was like a spaceship one where like the person that had the handheld like had a different interaction than the players watching the TV or the screen and like stuff like that. And so I really felt like the Wii U like what the biggest problem with the Wii U was that it was just a console of broken promises because they promised this
Yeah.
like I feel like they basically promised the Switch, but they also promised beyond the Switch. They're like, and then you can go home and you can like use the console screen to like control other things while the other players are in doing other stuff and nobody did that all the producers that all the people who tried to design games for the system basically I feel like it's in part the like game designers faults too because they just ignored the potential of that system um
And that's kind of like the pitfall of being a hardware developer, right? Because the Wii U, I loved my Wii U. I thought that was a really awesome system. It was the first time I saw like HD, like true HD Mario and stuff like that. Every Nintendo game that they put out first party was fantastic. I mean, even Breath of the Wild was even on the Wii U. I played Breath of the Wild the first time on the Wii U, and but Sony had the same problem with the Vita. They put out this fantastic piece of hardware that's still going strong today. People are still making games for the Vita, like homebrew games.
yeah
I still use my Vita sometimes. That it can play PlayStation games, PSP games, and Vita games. And theoretically, they could have put more PS2 games on there, like Jack and Daxter Trilogy was on there and some other stuff. But no one spent the time to really get um like smooth gameplay out of it. You had like Naughty Dog that put Uncharted out like at the very beginning of the system's lifestyle, and they're like, "Holy crap! Uncharted works on it. Resistance worked on it. Like all that stuff worked on it. Fight Killzone." And then no one made games for like 3 years, except for a bunch of Japanese RPGs and like dating sims, and that was basically it. And then like Borderlands came out on it, and then what was it? Was it Borderlands and like Call of Duty or something like that came out like
I have
right
no
at the
idea
end of its life cycle? And then they like Borderlands didn't even run well. It runs at like 15 frames per second because they just didn't even put any time towards developing well for it. And the system died, and everyone's like screaming, "Why is the system dying? This is the most powerful handheld ever made with the most versatile application. Plus, it does remote play on the PS4."
yeah
Um, but no one supported it, and that's what kind of sucks when they put out good hardware without any developer support for it. and like Sony wasn't really pushing for that support either, which is what the game devs were saying. So that's
Yeah.
probably what Nintendo was doing with the Wii U. Like they just kind of immediately said this is a flop, immediately cut it and go on to the next step.
Well, and that's like right. That's I mean, and I get that mentality, right? I'm a business major slash degree going for. Anyway, I'm in school for business, right? And so like, you know, it makes sense sometimes to cut your losses and move on to something else. But I also feel like so many of these businesses in general, and especially in the video game market, like continue to cut their losses too quickly. You know, they don't fight for the system while also working on the Switch in the background. And instead, they're like, well, the Wii U was a flop, so shrug. Good thing the Wii's still selling well, because the Wii continued to sell during the Wii U, like extremely well. And go ahead.
I feel like part of it, especially for Nintendo, is it's the family system. Like, people are like, oh, my kid wants to play video games. This is the one that's safe for them to play on. And that's not entirely true, especially anymore. A lot of the games are just on everything. But it was more true when the Wii U was out. And then you get these weird things where if you name it like one letter different from the previous console, and you're just like a grandma whose grandchild said, I want the Wii U for Christmas, you don't know the difference. Like, part of it is just naming schemes. They need to make the names more distinct.
Yeah.
Or just, like, I don't know. I appreciate that they don't just slap numbers on them, but I do feel like that makes it obvious. If Timmy is like, Grandma, can I have a PlayStation 5? You're not going to go get him a PlayStation 2. Because he said 5, and that's something you can remember. Yeah. Meanwhile, if he's like, can I have a new 3DS? You're going to be like, you're a brat. I just got you one last year.
Yeah.
Because it's like... And the Wii U sounds like a controller that you buy for the Wii if you don't know what it is. It doesn't sound like a whole new console.
No, I really do feel like the Wii U as a whole was like a console of broken dreams and promises, and it's not even necessarily Nintendo's fault that those dreams and promises were broken, right? Like, it comes down to the developers not necessarily pursuing those dreams. It comes down to Nintendo basically deciding it was a flop like 3 months after releasing it, and like honestly didn't really support it that well after that, in my opinion. Most games, pretty much every game that came out on the Wii U also came out on the Wii because their hardware was so similar. So there was really no need, unless you wanted the big fancy paddle controller or whatever, for the Wii for the Wii U in most cases. So I don't know. It was definitely a snafu, as some would say.
I think it also is maybe harder for us to see here in America because a lot of times these consoles that kind of flop here in America do really well in Japan. And so like the Vita, for example, excellent market control in Japan. And the majority of their best-selling games were all Japanese language games. And so
robot Jared.
It's kind of frustrating. Oh, is Discord having issues?
No, you stopped being a robot like right after I said that. So
okay.
You're good.
But and so it's frustrating for us here in America when we look at like Nintendo, especially Nintendo's primary focus is probably honestly Japan, because they're such a Japanese centric company. And I don't fault them for that at all. So it's hard for us to see because like they will do things that to us seem like business suicide or just like completely irrational, and it's stuff that really hurts their American markets. And we're probably not seeing how it's actually beneficial for them and their like local markets. And so it's just kind of, I don't think they have a very good communication. Sony has the same problem. Microsoft's probably one of the better ones with communication, almost to a fault where they over communicate. And people are like, wait, I'm confused.
But who knows? So, like, maybe in other countries, Microsoft is the same way, where it's like, we didn't bother translating that whole newsletter to Japanese, so we have no Japanese market now.
I wonder how much of it. I wonder how much of it is the home offices. You know, like the Nintendo American office, just like dropping the ball. Because I've heard some pretty like not positive things about like the Nintendo home office in America and the Sony home office in America has I've heard some pretty interesting things about as well. Not necessarily like, some crazy like intrigue or anything like that, but just them completely dropping the ball and like completely snafuing a port or like I do feel like there's often not the correct kind of like PR for like new products in America from Japan. So like I feel like those that comes down to like a bad home office, like not pursuing it as well as they probably could have or should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I remember.
Hey, Justine.
I think I remember something about like the Wii Motion Plus controller sold way better in Japan than it did here, and I have no idea why. I know that happened with a lot of other stuff that had more to do with actual infrastructure, like the Game Boy Color had online matchmaking. Americans could not do that. It just was not an option.
Yeah.
Because you had to hook it up to your cell phone, and they were like, well, they don't have that, so we just won't give them these features at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is kind of interesting that, like, as far as like the United States and our view of ourselves, we view ourselves as a very first world country and like cutting edge technology. But, I mean, really, if you really think about it, or you ask somebody living out in the woods somewhere, like a lot of those people are lucky to be on dial up if they have anything at all. Like I grew up with dial up, and granted, the internet was still fairly young when I was growing up, back in the early 2000s, late 90s. But like I lived 45 minutes out of town, and we were on like a 20 kilobyte connection or something, and that was a good day.
Yeah.
Like, so like it is interesting that like our internet infrastructure in particular, and a lot of some other things, but we won't get into those. But our internet infrastructure in particular is super far behind some of these other countries, and Japan.
Yeah.
Japan definitely takes advantage of that because they get some of the cool shiny toys that I hear about, and I'm like, why didn't I get that? Well, it's because like as a whole, like I'd be one of like a few 100,000 people buying it, which is just not enough to justify bringing it over.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's definitely the problem.
I was just gonna say, I remember there were a lot of events on the DS that were like, you can go use public Wi-Fi for this, but the public Wi-Fi in America just could not handle the event at the time. Because there was something about the way it interfaced where it was like, no, I can't interface with this like login protocol that you're using, so that sucks, kid. You can't have that Pokemon.
No, I remember that being a problem at one of the first PAXs I went to. Everybody was wandering around with their DSs or whatever, whatever handheld Nintendo device it was at the time, and it was actually a big like event thing that like people were actually able to connect to the Wi-Fi after the first day because the IT team there got their crap together and figured it out. But that was that's one of my weird memories of PAX, along with lots of lack of sleep. But
yeah, it's definitely one of the challenges I think that like hardware developers have when they're trying to reach multiple markets, because you have some markets that are in some ways a little bit more homogenous technologically, and so like just Tokyo by itself is such a massive beast of a consumer body that you could just develop things for Tokyo and have massive success. And so but then you come to America, everything has contrast, and so like one of the benefits of being in America is that we have the ability for a company to just stand up and say, we're going to develop this new technology, and they go and make it, and then they distribute it and people can use it. And then 5 other companies can also develop similar but like separate technologies. And then now you've got 5 or 6 different technologies all competing for market control, and you kind of let the market decide which one's the best one. And then eventually one of them kind of gets picked, or one or two of them will kind of get picked as like the best technology. And then another country can come in and say, all right, we're going to adopt that one technology. Whereas in America, we've got like 5 technologies that are still like competing. And so then that one country goes and adopts that one technology, and then they make stuff work for that one technology. And then it comes back to America, but it only works on 20% of our stuff because we have like 4 other technologies competing.
Yeah.
And so that's like one of the problems that I think we had, especially with Nintendo. You know, we had the and Genesis, like Sega did the same thing. So you had the Genesis online, you had the Super Nintendo online, you had the disc drive for the 64, you had like the TV tuner for the Game Boy Advance, and
Yeah, I
you know,
remember
all
that.
these different things that just never took off here in America really that much, because it's just the available technology wasn't really there for consumer access at the time.
Yeah. No, it's kind of an interesting beast, and on top of that, also like our infrastructure is so much bigger as a whole, right? Like, yeah, it's all broken down into state and city, etc., due to the way our government works. But like as a whole, like we're such a larger country than almost every other country out there, and
Yeah.
we are extremely well developed for the size of our country. Um, and so like even though there's definitely people that are 45 minutes, 2 hours out of town or whatnot that have to either get satellite or be on sad dial-up connection of some kind, um, that's still a darn sight better than a lot of other places that are near our size. Um,
Yeah.
so, my point why I bring the size up though is we're also dealing with a weird infrastructure thing where a lot of our like public Wi-Fi or public routers and stuff like that are old. Like,
Mhm.
when I was in the Yosemite National Park, the park is the size of Rhode Island. It's actually bigger than Rhode Island by a few hundred feet. It's square miles or whatever. Um, but I think like 10 square miles or something. Anyway, um, the we were using network routers and like transfer boxes from literally the 70s.
Yeah.
That was like 5 years ago. So,
Wow.
so like the IT guys were always talking about how they had to like jerry rig the Wi-Fi connection through this like crazy like raccoon infested
Yeah.
like switchboard basically.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of issues like that. That's why I look at stuff that they do, like especially like the Wii U or like the Vita, and I'm like, well, why did you make those decisions? And then I kind of also wonder, like, I wonder if it's partly because of stuff like that, where it's
Yeah, well, I remember because the Vita's the one that was a phone, right?
no, that was the or I guess the Vita. I think they did have an LTE one as well, but it
Yeah, they
was
did. I
only
remember that.
available at the very, very beginning.
Yeah, and I remember that was part of why nobody wanted to use it. At least out here, everybody was like, I don't want to pay for a phone
Yeah.
because it needed a data plan too. And
Yeah, if you
like,
bought the
you
if you
know,
bought the LTE
it
version of it, yeah.
yeah, but then, people just latch on to like one piece of news and then it's dead.
Yeah, that's a very us thing, I think, as well. We would just take one bit of information and just run with it
Well, like
forever.
I think that might be part of the reason why the new Xbox Series X looks so radically different than every other Xbox. Is because like Microsoft has this horrible, like, I love Sony's naming convention. You've got PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4. What's the new console going to be? The PlayStation 5. It's really, really simple, and no one gets those confused. No one, if unless they write it down wrong or aren't listening, no one gets the PS3 versus the PS4 confused.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
Well,
so,
or
but
they
like
end up
Microsoft,
asking or they end up asking themselves the question like, "Oh, I'm at the store buying the Xbox or the PlayStation something. What was it? He
yeah,
said he said it was the new PlayStation. Which one's the new one? And it's numbers. Like you just go up,
yeah.
and if you really have doubt, you can be like, "Which one's the new PlayStation?" They're immediately going to know, almost no matter
Yeah,
who they are. But
Yeah.
but like the Xbox, so yeah, Xbox, and then Xbox 360, which is weird, but okay. And it's like at least it sets it apart. And then they had the
Uh-huh.
Xbox One, and they're like, all right, well, maybe they're going to like a standard naming structure. But then they had Xbox One, and then they had the Xbox One S, which was like the light version of the upgrade. But then they had Project Scarlet. But then they had Xbox One X, which utilized
Yeah.
some of Project Scarlet. But Project Scarlet really got the shine for the Xbox One Series X, which is not the Xbox One X. And so, but then
Yeah,
people get
no,
confused, and it's like it's horrible.
just naming anything something one after you've already made one of it
Yeah,
is the worst way to go.
yeah,
Like,
Well, if you want exciting naming conventions, just look at like Nvidia's or Intel's processors, or just like any of the graphics cards. Actually, like Nvidia's gotten better recently, and I feel like AMD has as well. But like, go look at Intel's processors; they're amazing. They're like 10K 493QR LMNOP.
yeah.
What?
yeah,
'Cause they
like
use
once
it
you learn
because
the
they name them
convention,
based
you're
off
like,
their
oh,
SKU.
Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's just so bizarre. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's but so anyway, that was a great, wonderful tangent. Does anybody else have any other thoughts to share on any of that?
Well, I'm excited for Skyward Sword coming out
Yeah,
on Switch.
right.
Possibly, we'll probably see an announcement
Yeah.
here in the next month or so if it's true, because they're probably gonna. If it is true, um, so it would be odd to come out this year, in my opinion. I think it would be coming out next year. They usually only do one Zelda game a year, and we already had the remake of was it Link to the Past or Link's Awakening? Link's Awakening.
Awakening.
Yeah, so we already have the remake of Link's Awakening this year, so I don't see them putting out Skyward Sword this year. I see it coming out in probably spring. But you never know. Nintendo's funny, and they don't have any cool things to put out on their favorite day, which is November 18th. And so, unless Pikmin 3 is coming out that day, but usually every year they have a big thing coming out around November 18th or 19th. But again, they
Oh
might
man,
not year because Cyberpunk comes out that day.
but yeah, no. So yeah, it's Link's Awakening, and I don't know. I could see them doing that though, especially if they don't have anything else exciting, or like at least bundling it up with like lesser titles per se, lesser. Like Pikmin was really big in its day, but I do believe it's fallen off some. Um, Although I totally still I love the idea of Pikmin. I haven't really gotten too far into it. Um, but I could totally see them releasing it as like on that day or near that day, because I don't think Nintendo has anything exciting for Christmas coming up really.
I don't think they do, other than Pikmin 3 remaster. And I'm looking to see if they've got a date for that yet. October 30th. So that's going to be about as close to the November thing. And then I'm looking on their website real quick to see what they have on the Switch, to see if there's anything else coming out soon.
Yeah.
Let's see, because they just released basically all their big games this summer.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Or they're gonna come out with their new secret like upgrade to the Switch, which is gonna be the Switch or something. I don't even know.
The Switch Pro or something. Well,
Yeah.
they've been very adamant that they will not be releasing an upgrade anytime soon. And they like one thing I read a while back kind of implied that they politely asked them to stop asking about it. So
Oh really?
yeah. So I don't think it's coming out anytime this year. Maybe next year, but I don't think they want to. I feel like Nintendo does best when they don't compete with Sony and Microsoft, because
No,
what
they
Nintendo does is so different that it doesn't make sense to try to compete with them.
No, I super agree. I think that and that was the biggest strength of the Wii, right?
Yeah.
Was that they just didn't compete with the Xbox or the PlayStation. They were just like, oh yeah, you guys are doing great. Congratulations. We have this. It's a
Yeah.
console technically, you know.
Uh-huh.
But so on your next point here of things to talk about, Senor, you have Dead by Daylight crossplay and teaser. What teaser we talking
So Dead by Daylight added crossplay support with consoles, which is probably like somewhat contributing to all the issues we've seen in the last week. But it's really exciting because I think more people play on console for those types of games than on computer. I know for
Yeah.
Call of Duty it's 100% the case because every match I go into is 80 to 90% console players.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And most of them seem to be PS4, which is odd to me because I always thought Call of Duty was like an Xbox thing.
I mean, it used to
Um,
be, but then Microsoft did some bizarro things, and everybody with half a brain was like, "What? No."
yeah. But they released a teaser trailer and it's, like 2 seconds long. But so normally Dead by Daylight does 4 expansions a year. They did 5 one year, but that was when they released the Evil Dead expansion, which was just an extra character. And so, oh, hold on, I'm gonna put my camera off for a second. And so, I think like 4 is kind of their standard.
Yeah.
And like every once in a while they might throw just a character in there, but well, when it comes to like new maps and all that kind of stuff, they usually do 4 a year. They've only done 1 this year, and we're halfway through August now. And that's to be expected. I mean, the pandemic is going to slow everything down, but you're gonna expect this, at least 1 more this year, and this is kind of what it looks like is happening. And so the teaser trailer for it looks like, I don't know. We have some ideas about it. Like it might be like a werewolf, or it might be like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of situation, because it looks like someone might be like transforming, or
Okay.
maybe it's like something like that. But I'm thinking like a werewolf or some type of were creature, or maybe a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so that's pretty exciting. Just because it's fun to have more like monster. Like I don't think they have like a lot of monsters in Dead by Daylight, and so that'd be kind of cool to have in there.
That would be cool. I mean, I haven't played very much Dead by Daylight. Just played the most of I ever played a couple days ago. You guys go check out that stream if you want. But I did have fun. I think it is really cool. But we ended up having some server issues because I guess the crossplay recently became fully active. And also there's just been kind of weird internet issues in general recently. I feel like, but I definitely feel like the extra load on the servers is not helping.
Yeah,
And so hopefully they're able to get those that extra load figured out and dealt with so that matches can happen faster. Somebody, who was the streamer's name? It was they brought it up yesterday, I think, but mentioned that it might be because there's more survivors now than killers or
yeah.
scary monsters or whatever. In Dead by Daylight. Uh, Jared, do you remember that guy's name? It was one of our
Um,
viewers on Twitch. I think he followed you the other
I
night.
think it was Land that said that.
Yeah,
And I think they were saying that there's just this huge influx of survivors, and since the game requires 1 killer and 4 survivors, like it's okay to have more survivors. But the problem comes is if it skews too heavily one way or the other, then you start having matchmaking issues. And so if there aren't enough killers out there, then you're going to have problems, because it also bases this match off of availability of levels, and it's got a whole algorithm that goes through.
yeah,
So even if you get a bunch of killers that jump in to start playing, if they're not the same killer level as the players that are trying to play, then it's still going to take longer.
yeah,
And from my experience, the longer it takes to get a match, the more off kilter the group is. And
yeah. I
so if
mean,
it's going to take like 15 minutes, you're going to have like level 4s in there with level 20s and stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, we kind of experienced the other night. We had like a level like 20 or 15 killer or something like that.
Jeez.
And we were all I'm level 3 or something obnoxious, and
It's the other way. You start at 20 and you work your way towards 1. And so I think we had like a level 7 killer, and then we were all like level 15 to 20.
yeah,
And so it was like they were like 3 tiers above some people.
yeah. And I was definitely the furthest behind and the worst, but that's okay. I looked really cool. I have a really fancy jacket on the character.
You look like a dude from the vampire game, the
Yeah,
vampire game.
yeah.
You look like you were going to murder the killer.
um But yeah, no, I'd be kind of excited to see what they add to Dead by Daylight. I know that it's fairly active, and that they have gotten a lot of various like expansions with like new levels and killers and stuff like that. So it'll be really really neat to check that out. So I'm kind of excited about this point actually. The things that we're playing that you guys out there don't know about. And of course, guys, this is we're chatting, so please feel free to chime in, hit the chat box. Everybody here should have it open someplace or available to see it, so we should all be able to see your messages and respond accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
So please feel free to drop a line. We're just literally going through our list so that we have something to talk about, because otherwise we'd all stand here and pick our noses or something.
I am gonna dip out in half an hour because I have a meeting in the morning.
Yeah.
Just a warning, so I don't spontaneously disappear.
Yep. So yeah, if you guys have any questions for your like any one of us or just in general, please just hit them out, or thoughts on the things we're talking about. Anyway, with that out of the way, the point that I've seen here that I think that I'm the most excited about overall is what we're playing right now and what you guys don't know we're playing. So, like Jared's been playing Death Stranding. I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag there. But like I've been playing Link's Awakening on my brand new Switch that my girlfriend got me for my birthday, which has been very exciting. Um,
Glad you're excited.
it's pretty great to play my brand new Switch when I'm like making breakfast in the morning. Um, gross. What's gross? Pick my nose. I'm just a gold digger. What can I say?
CJ, that is gross.
Anyway, I've really enjoyed the new Link's Awakening. It's really interesting because like I didn't think I ever beat the Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, but so far I have yet to find anything that I don't like vaguely remember from like little CJ 1,000 years ago. And so I'm just kind of looking forward to the point where I like finally get to the point where I don't recognize things anymore as easily, and I think I'm starting to get there now. But it just seems like, yeah. What's your problem? What's wrong with you? um, so I'm excited about that. It's been a lot of fun. It's been good times. Although I still have tons of items to find according to my inventory. Like it's like half empty still. So maybe I'm not as far in the game as I think. Um,
Dude,
uh,
the Link's Awakening remake was like such a fun nostalgia trip to anyone out there that played the original or the deluxe version as a kid. Like, do yourself a service and get the Switch remake, because like that was the first game when I was a kid that I would speed run. I would speed run playthroughs of Link's Awakening on my
Okay.
Game Boy, and when I played through it on the Switch, it was like I'd forgotten so much stuff, or I would be trying to figure out where this thing was or how to activate
yeah,
this like dungeon entry or something like that. And then I would remember, like right as I was like starting to figure out, it would just like all click and come back to me. And I was like, holy shit, there we go. And like you get back in there and the music kicks in, and it's such a well done nostalgia trip.
yeah.
And the art's really fun. It's just a really good game.
I think the
That's
problem
fair.
I think the problem, Justine, is that you know too much about nose pickers. Um,
But yeah, even if you didn't play that exact game, if you played it in the older Zelda games, like I've been really enjoying it because I didn't play the Game Boy Color Zelda games, but I played on like the Super Nintendo, and it has that same design going into it.
yeah, it has the same very similar
It's
feel.
like somewhere between the design for Link to the Past and the Capcom one, Minish Cap.
hmm
So it's been really fun for me to like go figure out puzzles I've never done before that still have that design to them.
Yeah, I kind of hope they make Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons maybe as like a single cart release. Because it was
Yeah,
done in
that
the
would be
same,
nice.
those were basically, they just took the same engine and just built two more games that were really well done that also were, they interacted with each other. And then I want to say Link's Awakening is the only Zelda game, the only top down Zelda game that has a jump button with Rock's Feather. I don't think that was ever
Minish Cap
used
had the
again.
feather,
Okay, so they brought it back with the Minish Cap, and then
and
not again until
yeah,
Breath of the Wild, pretty
So
much.
so Justine, the Zelda series in particular, and a lot of series do this in video gaming, where the each individual story in the video game is kind of separate, and you don't necessarily need to play, the first four to understand what's going on in the fifth one, or in the Zelda's case, they don't number them. Um, but it is in Zelda's case, it is like different stories out of Link's timeline or different versions of Link himself throughout his timey wimey multi-dimensional goodness. And there's actually a full like time chart somewhere that is kind of gnarly to try to figure out because you get games
yeah.
that you didn't think were that far in the future that are like way far in the future in the world's timeline, and then you get games that are like super far back that you didn't think were like that far back. Um, like Skyward Sword as the example here was like in the timeline of Zelda, like one of the first things to have happened.
It's the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 2,000 years before the next Zelda game.
Yeah,
And
so
then Ocarina split it into three timelines. So everything that leads up to Ocarina is in the same timeline. And then Ocarina splits it into three. And so, like, depending on which timeline it's in, the games have like a completely different feel.
yeah. So yeah, it gets pretty crazy. It's actually really fascinating. Like in Zelda's case, like each game and each world is like completely self-contained, and it just tells a small portion, small chunk of that world story and of the current hero. And then it just obviously like the flavor and everything changes depending on honestly kind of who made it.
Yeah. And I think only the Spirit Track and the Phantom, was it the Phantom Tower or something like that? I think those ones have the same link. And
Oh,
then Ocarina and Majora's Mask
they
have the
have the
same
same link
link.
as Wind Waker too.
Yeah.
Phantom
And so those are,
Hourglass.
well, the I think Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks take place in the same timeline as Wind Waker, but much later, like after the water started to recede, a little bit more. And then Ocarina and
That's
Majora's Mask
true.
have the same link. But those are the only games that actually have the same link. So there aren't even any like true. Oh, and Link to the Past actually has an actual sequel called Link to the Past too. Um, but they're very rarely do they actually end up using the same link. So like each one's like its own complete story and its own like kind of little mini universe.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of like what Final Fantasy does, right? Like every Final
Yeah.
Fantasy is in its own world, except for like 10 and 10-2. And even they
Mm-hmm.
could be arguably be almost different worlds because the systems that you use to interact with the world are so very different. Um,
Yeah.
and that's just because in that series the world changed at the end of 10 by that much. Um, but anyway, the so each every Final Fantasy is a completely different world. And so kind of one of the fun things that like Final Fantasy 14, the newest Final Fantasy MMO, has done is kind of like tie all of those stuff, all those
Hmm.
ideas and those world flavors and kind of like not necessarily the like direct world correlations, but like a lot of the same stuff into certain portions of the game. And so
Yeah.
you get like different continents that are themed after like Final Fantasy 4, and then you get like different characters and areas that are themed after Final Fantasy 6, and or
And then the main world is Final Fantasy 3. Like they pretty much just said it at one point because they took the same places exactly
yeah.
and a lot of the same themes. But then there's like this instance that's from Final Fantasy 11, and then at one point Noctis just shows up. That was a
Yeah,
crossover
from
event.
Final Fantasy 4 or 15. And
Yeah.
so like they basically are saying like, yeah, we acknowledge that Final Fantasy is this like multi-dimensional universe, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can't interact, right? um And so it's like Final Fantasy 14. Honestly, I love it. One of the reasons I do love it is because it's a love letter to all the other Final Fantasies. It's like if somebody built a theme park of all the other Final Fantasies, but also paid every portion of those Final Fantasies due respect. And then also they'll come back at you randomly. You'll be like, "Oh, that was a fun little like glimpse into Final Fantasy 3 or 4 or 6 or whatever." And then like suddenly an expansion and a half later, you're like, "Wait a minute, what?" Like that little thing had so much more to do with the world than I thought.
That's really fun
My
though. I didn't
favorite
realize it
is-
took place. Oh, sorry.
Oh, my favorite has been I started going back and actually playing the games in release order. So I'm on 3 right now, and I think I'm about halfway through. Mostly because I'm keeping up with 14. If I weren't, I'd probably be done with that one and on to like 2 later or something. But it's really fun seeing like all the little nods they did in retrospect. Like there's this whole thing, there's like this password basically in the base game of 14 that comes straight out of 2. It's the Resistance's password type thing.
Yeah.
And all sorts of other stuff like that.
That's really cool. That's cool that they use the world from 3, since that's where they introduced the whole job system in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's fun that it like all ties together.
Yeah, and then they also they pay huge kudos to Final Fantasy 12, right? Yeah, 12, and Final Fantasy Tactics, because those two Final Fantasies take place in the same universe.
Yeah, because it's also
Yeah.
an Ibelites, right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said 11 earlier. I meant 12.
But yeah, so like it's super cool. It's definitely, if you guys are looking for a wonderful, awesome, interesting MMO, Final Fantasy 14 is free up through the first expansion. So that means the first 60 levels are free. You know, if that's something that interests you. That kind of actually goes into our gaming on a budget. MMOs actually save you money sometimes if you do it right, honestly. Like, instead of dropping $50 or $60 a month on a brand new Call of Duty, because that's how often they release them, you can just spend $15 and play Final Fantasy or whatever, you know? Like,
yeah, it's like a $13 subscription.
Yeah.
There are more expensive subscriptions, but like that's the only one that's necessary to play. And then yeah, it's free up to 60. Like there are certain things you can't do, like you can't form a party, but you can join one and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, that's a little off topic. But yeah, so
today's non-existent sponsor is.
Yeah, right. That's funny. But yeah, so the Final Fantasy universe is a perfect example of like self-contained stories that don't necessarily take place generationally. So you have Final Fantasy 1 through 15 now, and they're definitely working on a 16, even though they kind of deny it. And then you have like Final Fantasy Tactics and various other spin-offs that other people are like, that's not a real Final Fantasy. I'm sorry, Final Fantasy Tactics is a real Final Fantasy. Just because it doesn't play traditionally doesn't mean it's not a real Final Fantasy. Come at me.
Chocobo Mystery Dungeon.
It's as much as the Final Fantasy as Final Fantasy 14 is.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anyway, so so they're all self-contained worlds, more or less. So, anyway.
Chocobo's Dungeon.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a weird game.
Yeah. I really would like to play that game. They did not make any ports of it though. Like beyond when they initially released it, I cannot find a port anywhere.
But yeah, so
there was that like fighting game, Air Guides or whatever, the Final Fantasy fighting game.
there's also the Crystal something that where it's like the tower defense one.
That one's coming out on Switch, if it hasn't already released. And that was actually something I was thinking of back when we were talking about the weird peripherals, because that was a great example of a fantastic peripheral support, and it was only used in like that game, and I think it got used in Madden, like Madden football for a couple years, and that was about it, where you could plug your Game Boy Advance into the GameCube, and you controlled your character in the Crystal whatever, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, that's what it was. You controlled everything from your Game Boy Advance plugged into the GameCube, but then your screen showed all of your personal abilities that you could do that no one else could do. And they use that same thing in Madden, where you can pick your plays, so your buddy that you're playing with doesn't know what play you're about to use. But yeah, it's that's, I don't know. I like stuff like that. I like unique utilizations of technology.
I really feel like I mean, I've said it 100 times. I mean, the Wii U was a missed opportunity for both game developers and Nintendo. Nintendo should have pushed a lot harder for some unique titles for it, because
Yeah.
there was some crazy great potential for some unique titles. Like, honestly, like, if they release something tomorrow that was like, dungeon simulator where I build the dungeon as you try to go through it, or racing simulator where you build the track as I try to get to it while you solve problems to build more of the track, and then I'm getting to the end of it, like, and if I get to where you're before you've placed your part, I escape the track or something and win. Then, like, it would be so cool. Like, it would be so cool. There's so many possibilities and so many different change ups you could do. That I just feel like it's a console of broken promises. But
Yeah.
anyway, the next thing that we kind of wanted to talk about is, and I kind of just alluded to it. So we'll go ahead and move on to it. Is the gaming on a budget segment, where we talk about free games, cheap games, gaming subs, mobile games, game streaming, all that fun stuff. Um, so, like, I genuinely do think that, like, if you are really into, or can really get into, like, an MMO that is not super outrageous, like Final Fantasy is like $12.99, I think, for the base subscription. Um, it's a great way to go to prevent yourself from spending, $20 to $50 on, like, random games every month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can be like, well, I already spent my game budget, unless it's a really special title to you.
No, this, like, playing Final Fantasies kept me from buying, like, every single Nintendo game that came out last year. Because if I'm not playing an MMO, that's what I do. I buy every Nintendo game that comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of other MMOs that are like that too. I mean, uh, like you said, free up to level 60. So, you have probably, for someone, especially if you're working, you have months worth of content to dive into for free. There's other systems that utilize kind of a similar structure. I know Star Wars: The Old Republic does that. World of Warcraft does up to 20, but you can get to level 20 pretty quick. But it's still enough to, like,
Yeah, that's
occupy
like one
a month
day.
of your time if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're just going
Yeah.
around looking at stuff, if you're not grinding quests, then you could probably spend a month getting to level 20 in World of
Yeah.
Warcraft.
No, MMO, massively multiplayer online, or multiple player massively online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
massively multiplayer online, and usually they're RPGs, but sometimes they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, the original term was MMORPG, but they're not all RPGs anymore. So
Yeah.
now the term feels kind of incomplete when you just say it all the way out loud, actually. Massively multiplayer online what now?
Yeah. I think that Knights of the Old Republic I kind of have beef with. At least for a while, they were like super aggressive about some of their monetization stuff.
I think they still are.
Yeah, and so,
Yeah.
like, even though it was free, it was like you couldn't play, like, over half the game unless you started buying dungeons or paying the subscription.
Yeah.
Which is
here's a
which
free
is probably
MMO
not.
Go ahead, Jared.
I was gonna say, which is probably not too bad, because if you're just looking for something to sink your time into, if you're just getting content, you can't ask them to give the whole game away for free.
Yeah.
And asking you to subscribe in order to play, I mean, that's more than what most of them do. Most of them require a subscription plus the purchase of the game itself, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually that's one of the exciting things is, if you buy the base game of Final Fantasy 14 right now, you get Heavensward, which is largely considered one of the best expansions, for free.
Yeah. Plus up to level 60, so you don't have to do a subscription up to level 60.
Yeah.
Well, so it's the trial goes up to level 60, and then once you buy the game, you get a free month.
Oh, okay.
So the cheapest way to go is actually to play the trial, and then you can transfer that account to a purchase, so you don't have to start over.
Yeah.
But as soon as you buy the game, you're on the subscription model because the trial has certain limitations. Like you can add friends if they add you first, but you can't just add people, and you can't join a free company or a guild, and you can't invite people to a party, but you can be invited to one. So basically, if you know someone, the game is there, like everything's there. But if you don't know anyone, then it might be a little harder.
Yeah, but I
That
mean
makes sense.
the point is that you can enjoy the majority of the game without actually having to drop a dime.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it uses the job system. So if you get to 60 with one job and you still don't have the money to buy the game, you can just go pick up crafting or another combat job or something.
Yeah. I actually don't know how that works. I personally probably stop at 59 and then go pick up a different job, but but yeah, I think that works that way. But yeah, I mean, enough Final Fantasy. We're obviously huge Final Fantasy 14 nerds. Free to play games. I actually I have really mixed feelings about free to play games because like while I super acknowledge that like everybody that makes a game and that I'm enjoying super deserves to make some money, right? Um, and so like a lot of these free to play games that have the hyper monetization, like Knights of the Old Republic, um, I don't mind monetization. I really don't. I just don't like it when I it just feels super unnatural. You know, like it interrupts my flow of gameplay. Like I think the right way to do monetization in free games in general is to not necessarily lock content behind walls, but lock like, you know, make my lightsaber look purple because some Jedi made that look really cool.
Yeah.
You know, or
Like the
whatever.
Fortnite or Call of Duty Warzone approach, where you can play
Yeah,
the game as much as you want for free. But if you want to play the game as a stormtrooper or as like a person in a llama suit, then you have to pay a couple bucks for it.
yeah, yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that I genuinely think that's the way to go. Not a lot of games are doing the locking content behind paywalls as much anymore, locking the pay to win model where you get the super flamey sword of awesome doom and win the
Yeah, I
game.
think there are plenty of games still doing that. They've just learned to move to mobile.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and even on mobile, I kind of see it disappearing as people like awaken to the like, why is this dumb thing? But yeah, it definitely still is around. Um, but you know, like EA got received the wrath of the most of that wrath like late last year, right? With the Star Wars release.
Yeah, Battlefront 2.
Mhm.
Or not Battlefront 2, the other one.
And that wasn't even a free game, so like so double dip in there, and that's you know, and again,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily mind if you know I buy a game, get a whole bunch of stuff, get the core game, and then you monetize certain aspects of the game, but pocket frogs, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds froggy.
Well,
Does that
like Rocket League's a good example of how you can
does that mean
charge someone to.
does that
Oh,
mean
sorry.
that Justine always has frogs in her pocket?
That sounds pretty fun, actually.
Just like terrify children all the time. You just reach in your pocket, pull out a frog, throw it at
Just
them.
throw frogs at them.
Pocket sand.
An upgrade to pocket sand. Yeah.
But yeah, free to play games, you have to really watch for like especially that mobile concept, and sometimes it sneaks into consoles. It's I think it's on computer as well, but there's so many other options on PC that you can usually bypass it. But the idea that they usually get you in with a trailer that has nothing to do with the game. And then once you're in the game, they give you a tutorial where you feel really powerful and feel like there's a lot of stuff you can do, and then they release you into the first couple of levels and you seem to do okay. The challenge ramps up until about you know about a day after you start playing it, all of a sudden you've hit this wall where you like mathematically cannot succeed anymore
Yeah.
unless you grind for a few months to beat one more person or you pay money to boost. And that style of game is not something I find enjoyment in. I think a lot of people that get the same satisfaction from gambling find a lot of satisfaction in those style of games where they like to see a return on their like financial donation. So like if they spend $1, then they win. And I think that I don't really view that as like a game so much as like, I don't view that as much of as a game, much like I don't see slots as like a game really. It's more of like
Yeah,
you spend some money and then someone tells you if you won or not. And if you spend enough money, mathematically you're gonna win something.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, you've spent more money than you've gotten a return. And so that's kind of the biggest danger I think in free to play games. I think MMOs are probably one of the safest ways to go about that. MMOs and battle royale games are probably the two safest ways to go about that because
yeah,
both of them usually make so much money from external factors like doing subscriptions so you can use expansion packs or like buying clothes and like cosmetic differences and stuff like that. And so they get so much money from that stuff they can afford to just give the actual game away for free. But that's the real danger from free to play games, I think. Unless you're into that, in which case, you do you. But
yeah.
you got to watch out for that pitfall if you're not sure about it going in.
Yeah, no, and again, I just like it's the whole thing where like it's the pay to win model, regardless of how it looks, and I'm not a fan of that, and I think it's really silly and dumb because I remember the first time I saw it was actually not in a phone game. It was my buddy playing Dragon Age, like the second one, with the oh gosh, what's his name, with the like the Mage's Tower and you're getting to the bottom of it, but anyway, the second one, and they they like released a like set of armor that was just like way better than anything you could have in the game, and like a sword, and they were separate purchases, and each piece of armor was a separate purchase if I recall correctly, and you could like buy the sword for $10, and you could buy each piece of armor for like $3. And I was like, and he was like, "Oh, I just got this. This was like $3, and the sword was like $10." And I was just like, "Bro, like what? Are you for real right now?" Yeah,
um, yeah, that's a real pitfall. I think it's a dangerous trap to fall into. Like I said, unless you've got the money and it makes you happy, if that's the case, then you're not hurting anyone.
yeah,
Uh, but if you're not aware of that going in, it can really suck if you pour 20 hours into some game just for the game to turn around and say, "Oh, all that fun you've been having, well, it stops right now unless you give more money."
yeah,
Unless they say that going forward. Final Fantasy says, "Hey, if you buy the game or if you start the trial for free, we'll let you play till level 60. But once you hit level 60, you have to either stop playing or buy the game." Like that's fine because it's an agreement that going in. But if you start a free to play game, they're like, "No, it's totally free. You don't have to spend money." And then 20 hours into it, you get hit with a message. It's like, looks like you're having some trouble there because you've lost that battle 7 times in a row because they kill you in one hit. That's like a real kind of blow to people, I think, and it kind of turns them off from some games that they may really enjoy.
How to deal with a bully? Google. Tell an adult. True Factor 16. That's funny.
Learn to cast fireball.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
actually how you deal
Fireball.
with a bully.
That's
Yeah.
actually not good advice because you can cast fireball in real life, and I do not recommend it.
You can?
Only if
Nope.
you're a dragon.
Nobody's taught me
That's
this.
the only time it's okay.
There's this thing called a Molotov cocktail.
If you scream
Do not
fireball,
consider
then it is a fireball.
Oh, my bad. Land of Unknown Wonders. Oh,
What's up, land?
But I think there's also a huge crowd of people out there, and I think one of the reasons that so many of these companies have gotten away with it for as long as they have is that they're like, "Oh, well, I don't have the time to pour 40 hours into this game. I just want to enjoy the mid or in game content, right?" And to that, I mean, I get that, and I understand that like you should have some way to maybe like get around that, but I feel like there's a way to do that without necessarily paying to win, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. Like Call of Duty was a good example of this with like how they've been running things from what little I've seen is like So if I get like buy an XP boost, that's fine. I don't see any problem with that personally. But then I still have to go
Yeah.
grind out that XP boost.
Yeah, you still got to
Um,
grind it out, but you get there a little bit quicker. You can use a battle pass, so you
Thanks.
get some more stuff a little bit faster.
yeah.
And I like that too. Or like the way World of Warcraft did it.
Hmm.
Hey, you buy World of Warcraft, you want to start at 65 with the like whatever they were, Death Knight or whatever. That's fine. Go for it. Like, here's your little thing. You're going to start out with everyone's going to be at the same basic gear. And then, all right, now you don't have to grind up because some people like the grind and some people like the end game. And so it
Yeah.
kind of caters to both.
Well,
And, it's not too bad.
well, and then like World of Warcraft in particular has like the level boost up to like 10 levels under the max level, which I actually think I super enjoy, but I also kind of hate because like
Well, they also have one to max level. That's the one I have a problem with.
yeah. I mean either way I kind of like I have problems with it because I have problems personally understanding my kit. Like
Yeah.
you otherwise have like in World of Warcraft you like have 100 levels or more to figure out your kit, and at boosting myself to that level, all of a sudden I have 30 buttons that I don't know what they do. Well, that's an exaggeration because it's World of Warcraft. You have 6 buttons and 19 combinations, and some ruins to figure out what they do. But
Well, I think that kind of segues over to the next thing though, is like games that aren't free but are cheap, like cheap
yeah,
games.
so cheap
And
game.
I think MMOs, like you guys were saying, is a great way to get into cheap games because usually, especially if they're an older MMO, you can get in at a pretty easy entry level price.
Yeah, and some of the older MMOs still have like subscriptions, but it's like they're massively discounted. Like I've
Yeah.
seen some MMOs do like $7 subscriptions and stuff.
Eh, And that kind of goes for any older game in general. I mean, there's always like Steam sales and there's Epic sales and
Humble bundles.
GOG sales, Humble Bundles, all that stuff where you can get really cheap games. Um, but just older games in general. Like I see a lot of people on the stream that comment in and they talk about, oh, they don't have that game yet, stuff like that. And a lot of people say that they're bored and they want to play games, and that's a really really cheap way to play games. Is
Yeah.
go and find some older games. It's
Well, and the nice thing about
there's
the
this
older games is that you don't necessarily need the best computer to play it, right? Like you can play a lot of the older games on the hand-me-down laptop that your dad gave you or your uncle gave you, whatever. Or the hand-me-down desktop or whatever. Or if you have a PlayStation 3 sitting around, like there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games for the PlayStation 3, and most of them are on sale at GameStop.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get them for like $3 for $5. And there's this weird idea that new is best, and I don't believe that. I also don't believe old is best. A lot of people say old is best too, and it's like, no, it's not. It's like if old was best, then why can I do old now but better?
Yeah.
It's like, and so I don't think new is technically best either. I think it's just whatever makes you happy at best, and if
Yeah.
it makes your life more fulfilling. And we get into this trap where it's like, oh, if you're not playing with the best graphics or the newest console, then you're not okay. And it's like, no, it's like, like Super Mario Brothers 3 is still as good today as it was, 30 years ago. And so just because it's not brand new doesn't mean that it's not still fun to play. And so you can go out and find these like cheap older games. Like if you're on like Steam right now and just go to the store and
there's the
like,
Sega bundle there's the Sega bundle on Steam if it's still on. I mean, it's still in my library, but I don't know if it's still for sale. But for a long time they had a Sega bundle where it was just a big emulator for Sega, and it would like put you in like this old looking like 90s-esque looking room.
Yeah.
And you had like 20 or 30 Sega games.
Yeah.
It's not a bundle anymore, but any games that you get that are emulated go to that emulator. So I just have Sonic 3 and Knuckles. That's all I have in there.
Yeah, I'd have to start mine up to see what I have in it, but there's all kinds of games in there. Or at least the one I bought. But like even those little tiny like mobile consoles that have like 10 or 15 games in them for like, $50 to $60, I think is a pretty great cheap way to just get fun little console that yeah, it doesn't stream Netflix and it doesn't do a lot of the things that that console used to do back in the day even, but it's still a fun little way to like play some Donkey Kong Country and like Super Mario Brothers and like all that stuff. Like Kitty got one for Christmas a couple of years ago, um, and like it's we had a great time with it. We still break it out and play it all the time. Um, so I mean, there's definitely a lot of great ways to do it, and of course, there's all the illicit ways to do it as well, but we won't talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely ways that you can modify those emulator consoles to run any games that you have ripped from your old cartridges that don't play anymore on your broken old console.
Which is impossible because you can't
Which-
do that. Shh.
Can't do what? No,
Shh.
no. If you own the cartridge and the console, it's legal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you have to own
Which
the
is why I gave
hardware
that
that the
exact
BIOS is
scenario.
tied to.
Yeah. Visit a
If
lot of
you own
yard
the
sales.
hardware, if you own the hardware that the BIOS is tied to, and you own the cartridge that the software came from, then it's all legal. But a lot of people don't
Yeah,
want to go through the
'cause-
trouble of doing that. But like those little things like that Sega bundle, or
Mhm.
just any of those like Xbox flashback game packs,
Yeah.
that they have, or like Rare Replay on the Xbox 360, all
Yeah.
that stuff is like such a fun way. You spend like, you go to GameStop, you spend $10 at GameStop, and you can, if you're smart about what games you buy, you can turn that into like 400 or 500 hours worth of gaming for like
Oh, yeah,
10
easily.
bucks.
Well, and then
And
like
so
then there's the other cheap gaming of like some of these subscription services, like the Xbox subscription service for the PC
Mhm.
app and stuff. I've actually been blown away at the value that I'm getting out of that.
Yeah.
Every time I open it. So like I genuinely think like you do kind of definitely have to do some research, and I think that Windows definitely, like Microsoft definitely learned from their mistake when the PlayStation 4 first released. But
Thanks.
hey Sailor Chick. But the so like that's exciting news though for all us gamers, because since Microsoft learned from their like bizarro gold subscription thing that they did, like that nobody basically remembers now. I hardly remember the details, but it was just like extra weird compared to what Sony was doing. And that's the reason the PlayStation 4 sold better. That but their subscription service right now is super cool, because like you can go on there, there's some new games on there, there's some great games like Gears of War on there, Minecraft Dungeons is on there, like all these really cool games, and the first month is like $1, and then every month after that's like $10. And so if you're playing games out of there, and you don't like, and a lot of those games, like I can't even tell you how many games I own that I've played once and never touched again. Like, yeah, I may have beaten it, but I never going to go back to it. And I think that's a great way to play games, provided you're playing them and not just paying for a subscription.
It's true. I like those subscription services. Microsoft has one called Game Pass. They have it for Xbox and PC. So if you have an Xbox, you can still do it. PlayStation has their PlayStation Plus. It's a little bit different. You don't get like an immediate access to a ton of stuff, but you get free games every month that you're going to keep forever, as long as you have an active PlayStation Plus. So it builds up over time. It's like an investment. Ubisoft has one, EA Games has one. Both of them are great deals. You can spend $10 and play a month's worth of every Far Cry game on the Ubisoft one. And it's like it's gonna be difficult to find a place where $10 gets you access to all the Far Cry games on PC for a month. So that's a great deal. And so I try to think of what others there are. Humble has one.
The
Humble
Switch
Monthly
has one that's
for the
there's
virtual
that
console.
too. Yeah, the Switch has one and it has Nintendo and Super Nintendo emulators attached to it.
Yeah, it's like $20 a year, and Nintendo Online gets you all the access to that, plus Tetris 99. And so there's like a ton of ways that like it kind of surprises me, but then again, I go out and I look for this stuff because it interests me. It's a hobby. So in a way, it probably kind of doesn't surprise me when people say they don't know about this stuff. Like I've talked to people that have Xbox Ones, and they're like, "Oh, I only buy about 2 or 3 games a year because that's all I can afford." I'm like, for the cost of one of those games, you could have,
You could
between
have
6 and 12 months of Xbox Game Pass, depending on what kind of, like, if you get in on a trial and like rotate through trials or whatever.
And I would
You know,
probably say a solid 60% of the time those games are on the Xbox Pass.
Yeah, especially if you have an Xbox console, you have hundreds of Xbox console games like Red Dead Redemption, stuff like that, that are on that aren't even on PC. And so if you're a console gamer, it's just insane. I know the EA subscription also works for console, I believe. At least it does for Xbox. And so there's that too. They've got Mirror's Edge, all the Battlefield games, all the Battlefront games, the Star Wars Battlefront ones, a bunch of racing, Need for Speed, all that stuff's on the EA one. So there's so many different ways that you can get all these gaming subs. And then you've got, like we talked about earlier, MMOs, like Elder Scrolls Online. You could get that
Yeah.
and just pay your 12, $15 a month, and you basically have unlimited Elder Scrolls. And from the people I've talked to that play Elder Scrolls Online, they say it is one of the best MMOs out there.
Yeah.
We already know, like, Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft, Star Wars. There's so many different MMOs even. So, but even if you don't have like $15 a month, even if you have $5 a month, I think like Game Pass on PC is like, I think you can get it for. I think sometimes you can get it for $5 a month for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy good deals. And even if you only have enough money for 1 month, you could have a whole month of gaming and then just cancel it. And then save up for a couple months, get another whole month's worth of gaming versus saving up for 6 months to play a game for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. Like the Humble monthly bundle is actually a pretty good deal overall as well. It's a little bit more. I think it's one of the more expensive ones that you mentioned. But it definitely, it's what's nice about it is you get like between 5 and 10 games for free, and there's usually one or two really solid titles in that monthly bundle. And
And it's also one of the ones where they're just downloads. You don't have to keep subscribing if you
yeah,
can't afford it to keep those games.
yeah. So that,
Yeah.
that that one's particularly nice, even though it's a little on the expensive side because you just own the game after that. So you don't have to worry about, oh well, I didn't pay my subscription this month. So that definitely lends its strength, in my opinion. But yeah, no, there's tons of great ways to game cheaply. Um, we could probably do a whole talk so to just like breaking down each one like individually
Yeah.
and like how
Oh,
to
and
really go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, before we switch over, don't forget GameFly still is around too. So even if
Yeah,
you don't have internet, all you have is physical media for your consoles. GameFly, it's like $16 a month or $23 a month if you want two at a time. I used GameFly for like 3 years, and I played like almost every console game that came out in those 3 years on every console that we owned, because I would play one and I would send the other one back. And by the time I got the other one back in the mail, the one I was playing was done. I'd swap it out, and I'd play like a new game every week and complete it. And I'm talking like Dragon Age and Far Cry and all that stuff I played on GameFly originally. And
yeah,
so it's such a great deal.
yeah. No, it really, really is. Um, so yeah, and then let's see what other great cheap ways to play games there are. So, um, don't play Magic the Gathering. That's my biggest advice for keeping it
Yeah,
cheap.
if you don't want to spend too much money, Magic the Gathering and probably Hearthstone and Gwent. I don't know if Gwent's really that expensive, but Hearthstone can get expensive, and
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering requires it to be expensive.
Well, at least the physical game does. The actual like electronic game, you can actually get like it's gonna take some time, but you can play for and get like in-game currency to get everything you want.
Yeah.
If you're doing the computer like emulator stuff, just like Hearthstone. Um, Although I would say that Magic the Gathering is actually, if you're gonna play one of those electronic online card games, last time I played Hearthstone versus like Magic the Gathering, Magic the Gathering was way more friendly. Like it was a lot easier
Mhm.
to earn cards and get more cards and like get the cards you needed versus Hearthstone. So I personally would if I were to get back into those, I would go play Magic the Gathering. But I also don't really care about those computerized card games that much unless I'm really just like chilling out and doing not much, and usually then I'm doing something else. So, but if I'm at my computer playing a game, it's not going to be Magic the Gathering. I'm sorry, I'm going to go play something else because
Yeah.
to me, Magic the Gathering is a board game. I want the tactile stuff. Also, um, if I want going to be at my computer playing a game, I want it to be something that's actually graphically relatively speaking. Like I don't want to play with electronic cards. I don't know. It's just maybe it's a personal quirk, but I really hate that concept. But yeah, then like so here's a fun one that like has definitely started to really come into its own, right? Like the game streaming on mobile and off mobile even. Um
Hmm.
Game streaming, so you have like the Google Stadia, you have there's a shadow box, I think is what it's called, where you could actually pay this company basically to have a really powerful rig that is all your own that they just stream to your rig. I think it's called Shadowbox. Something Shadow something or something Shadow.
Yeah,
Um,
Shadow Box.
yeah. Which is probably, in my opinion, one of the cooler ones because they basically give you a like you pay a certain level of subscription for access to like a different power, from my understanding, a different power level of computer, and then you can just like play games on it.
Yeah, NVIDIA's service basically operates the same way, the GeForce Now streaming.
Yeah,
Um, you link your Epic and your Steam accounts to it. There might be more. There might be Ubisoft and EA as well. And basically, if you own the games on Steam, so if you have like a phone or tablet, and you can have a Steam account. You can buy games on Steam using the Steam summer sales, winter sales, and stuff like that, as long as it's a game that is able to be streamed on GeForce Now. And then you just log into GeForce Now and play it on your phone.
yeah,
And you can
Oh,
have a
that's really
controller
cool.
hooked up to it. You can use on-screen controls. I've tried it out. I've played Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. I played a few different games on it just because I was testing out different streaming services from a
yeah.
really, really crappy
Have a good
internet
night, Justine.
connection.
Thanks for hanging out.
So even over like a crappy
Hey.
Wi-Fi internet connection that was really low speed, I was still able to play like Deus Ex
Yeah,
on it, and stuff like that. And you can play with like high graphics, like that you're playing. Like I played some game. Oh, I can't remember which game I played. Because I tried like a bunch of them out in rapid succession. But one of the games I tried had RTX, and I had RTX turned on at 1080. It was running 60 frames a second with ray tracing. So you can, for like I think it's free, unlimited free if you own the game on Steam. And then there's like you could do a pricing model, I think, if you don't own the games or something like that. But they constantly bring it up and take it down because they don't have like an official structure for that yet. They're kind of still testing that. But just the streaming itself is basically free as if you own the game. And so there's options like that.
well, and then
Like
Steam, of course, has its own streaming thing, which isn't, I wouldn't say, as good as some of the other ones, as far as like going over the internet. Um, but it's pretty nice. And the clever thing about the Steam one, which is a kind of a little trick that I accidentally came across, is that you can actually open up the Steam's desktop streaming program, and then if you Alt Tab out of the game, you have access to your desktop.
Oh, you're talking about streaming from your own computer. I was talking
Well,
about
yeah,
streaming from NVIDIA's servers. You don't have to
yeah,
own a computer to use the GeForce Now.
that's
It
true.
actually streams from NVIDIA. It's just like
Okay.
it's like Stadia and it's like xCloud, the Microsoft service. Both of those. So you're using actual servers at NVIDIA, and so you don't even need to own a computer. If you own a mediocre smartphone running Android, you can play all these games.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's kind of one of the other things I wanted to mention though is like we're talking about streaming services from like these big companies, or not even
Mhm.
necessarily big, but these other companies, right? Um, like if you have a fairly nice computer at home, it doesn't even have to be like super crazy good, and you have games on it that you want to play. Steam does have its own streaming app, um,
Yeah.
and so if you're out on the go, like traveling, even if you left your computer on at home, you can access it theoretically. Um,
Yeah.
I do think that Steam's is probably it's gotten better. I will say it's definitely gotten better, but I don't think it's as good as some other options that are out there. But one of the coolest things about Steam, and not all the other ones do this, is it allows you to actually access the desktop with relative ease.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can have access to your actual just straight computer. Yeah, you might have a game running in the background, but like, now you can access your Word document or whatever. But yeah, if we're talking like just strictly from like these other companies where you like may or may not be paying a subscription, there's the Nvidia one, which has been really good. The shadow boxes sound super cool. I have not really messed with these personally. I've only researched them a little bit because they sounded curious, and I was curious. There's oh gosh, I feel like there's another
PlayStation Now.
PlayStation Now. There's doesn't Amazon have one now too? Or maybe
Let
one's
me
in the
look.
works.
They were talking about that. Let me look up because Google has Stadia, Nvidia has GeForce Now, Sony has PlayStation Now. Which, if you don't own a PlayStation console, PlayStation Now. I mean, you've got Little Big Planet, you've got Last of Us. All that stuff is on PlayStation Now. You can play it on PC. You can play it on a PlayStation 4. So you could, if you can buy the console but can't afford the games, that's another way around it. Let's see, because I know Amazon's making some. Oh, okay. So they're saying that maybe they're saying that it might be ready. Oh, so this was right before the pandemic. They were saying that might be ready by the end of this year. So it's definitely not going to probably be this year. It'll probably be like next year.
Yeah, they're probably still gonna try to shoot for Christmas, but they'll probably fail.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be like integrated with Twitch and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, they just rebranded their entire gaming service actually too. So
Yeah,
it'll
and
be
they've got the new
interesting.
MMO coming out, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
That'll be interesting to watch and see what happens. Let's see what other ones. Actually, Linus Tech Tips. If anybody's interested in computers and this kind of stuff, just in general, go watch Linus Tech Tips. But please also come watch our videos. But Linus had a couple segments on various ones of these, and they get pretty in depth. They actually sit down and test because they can afford to get the Stadia and the Shadow Box and stuff like that. They test the various delays, and they tested the like quote unquote future reading AI that's supposed to predict your movements or whatever, for Stadia and stuff like that. So it was kind of interesting. I definitely I don't know. I think game streaming like that is really cool. I don't know if it's going to catch on like seriously anytime soon because I think that most people that are playing those kinds of games like seriously and spend a lot of time on games are the younger audiences that don't have to work 8 to 14 hours a day, or whatever to get by. Um, and that's one of the reasons like things like Call of Duty are so popular, right? Is you just go home, you vegetate in front of your computer or Xbox or PlayStation, and you just run around and run and gun. And it definitely it takes skill to get good at those games. So I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's relatively mindless beyond that. Like you can just kind of vegetate and chill out and do that.
I
Or
think
get
it'll I think it'll probably get more popular as technology gets a little bit easier, especially infrastructure.
yeah. Yeah, and I
Like
do think that like well this goes back to our original conversation at the very beginning of the stream, right? Where we got waylaid with infrastructure. I don't think like a lot of places in America where people would take advantage of that kind of stuff have the infrastructure to take advantage of that kind of stuff. Because I really think
yeah.
that like a lot of people that would take advantage of that kind of service would be like the honestly like the lower classes of the United States. So like the lower to mid low classes would be able to afford a streaming service. Like I could afford a streaming service and have all the games I ever wanted to play. If it was only like $10 or $20 a month, I could do that. And I make like no money, right? Um, so like it definitely is a great way to go for somebody like me. Now somebody like me, I already built up a ridiculous gaming library, and so like sometimes it's hard for me to justify buying a new game or even paying a
Yeah.
subscription. But I do it anyway sometimes.
I think as internet gets a little bit more available, uh, I think the idea that if you have like 4G Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, but if you have like 4G wireless, um, with like decent stability
Mhm.
and an Android-based phone. Because again, none of this is going to be on iOS anytime soon. Apple will not allow streaming services on any of their products, not on any of their iOS products. So that's just, maybe Epic can get somewhere with this lawsuit that they're filing against Apple, as well as Google and everyone else.
Yeah.
Microsoft, I think, is suing them as well. And so maybe they can get somewhere, but Apple honestly really only exists here in America anyway. And so they
Wait,
don't
why are
have
they suing them?
Uh,
Apple doesn't allow any service on its platform that it does not have complete final control over. And,
basically,
you
yeah.
know, Microsoft xCloud is not going to give Apple the final decision on what games are allowed on Microsoft xCloud.
Yes.
So
So,
they won't
for
allow the service.
yeah, Fortnite and like Google Stadia and a whole bunch of these other guys, right? They're having all kinds of issues
Can't.
with these phone companies, like Apple and even the Play Store, where they
Yeah.
charge
Well,
like,
the Fortnite one's different though. It's for a different reason.
well, but it ties right in because the reason that they got banned is because they wanted to do in-app purchases, which means
Yeah.
that Apple wanted to take 30% of every single in-app purchase. But that's like their main revenue source. And like if you're taking
Mhm.
30% of, $3 and you say that like, yeah, maybe that $3 is quote unquote all profit by the time 700,000 people buy it, like that's not the point. The point is that it's $3. You're shaving like, a solid chunk of that $3, like shaving an entire dollar off that $3. Um, like it's I don't know. It's very not competitive. It's like because there's only really two stores and they're both charging like between 20 and 30%. And I think Apple's the more guilty of the two parties in this case, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Well, it's
so
kind of silly, right? That'd be like Target saying that they're not going to sell you a Sony PlayStation 4 because Target was not given exclusive access to tell Sony what games were allowed to be put out on the PlayStation 4.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
it's funny. The whole Epic thing with Fortnite, I find personally hilarious
Oh
because they
yeah,
baited Apple into it so hard and Apple fell for it so bad. So I thought that was really funny
yeah. No,
because
and I think
they
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like the way just the way they went around it, like they knew exactly what was gonna happen because they switched their in-app purchase from the store base to fully internal, so it did
Hmm.
not go through Google or Apple's um, purchasing system. It went through their personal one inside of Fortnite,
Yeah,
but they just set it up so perfectly. So they've been announcing for weeks this big event that was going to happen on that day, and then the day it happens, everyone's excited for this big new event in Fortnite. And that day it happens, they announce, "Hey, we are permanently reducing the cost of V Bucks, which is their internal currency, their little electronic currency they use in Fortnite. We are permanently reducing it by 20% forever." And then that day, Google and Apple block it from the store because they switched it over to in-app purchases within Fortnite, not within their purchasing system. So it bypassed the 30% cut that they would have gotten. So it's kind of funny because the 20% cut still means that Epic got a 10% increase
Mm-hmm.
of what it would have been anyway. And
yeah,
then now you have like millions of people that are pissed off at Google and Apple
yep,
because the day they went to do this big event, they got shut down.
yep. And then
So,
That's hilarious.
yeah, and then but this all coalesces and hey, Big Shrek, but that all it ties into like what everything else that's going on with them, right? So like even
yeah,
though it's not directly the same, it is close enough to the same, and it sets the same precedent.
it is.
And so
Yeah.
it's really interesting. How you doing today, Big Shrek? We're just hanging out and chatting and stuff. We were just talking about in-app purchases and Google, and I don't even know how we got there exactly.
We're on a tangent.
Yeah.
Somewhat from mobile streaming.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. What was the last? Well, you said mobile streaming. That's right. Yeah, we were talking about gaming on a budget and mobile streaming and the various options you have for that. Just kind of shooting the crap. But Yeah, so we got on a tangent of the recent developments with Epic and the Google Store and the Apple Store, and how there's a few companies suing both those stores, mostly Apple, but both of those stores, and kind of fighting the good fight, so to speak, to prevent some of the insane price gouging that both of those stores tend to do, and also favoritism. There's some really bizarre favoritism, especially on Apple's side, where they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, that app is okay." Even though they have in-app purchases or something along those lines. But your app, no way in hell.
Hmm.
So just some bizarreness that way too. Um, but anyway, I don't know. I think it's time we about moved on because I feel like we've beaten the gaming on a budget segment to death.
Sure.
Um,
I think I will take this as a point to leave so I can go to bed, so I can wake up on time.
okay. Well, let me
And
just.
actually, I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah,
step away for just a minute. I'm gonna go refill my water bottle real quick, and I will be right back.
And then
hey
it was just
CJ,
me.
before I log off, it's officially your birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh man, it's my birthday now, guys. August 17th. I just got older.
Okay.
Now we're talking
Thanks.
about now we're talking about how I just got older. Um, so on this day, 34 years ago, I came into the world as a shriveled up raisin. Um, thanks, Big Shrek. uh, but yeah, I think the next thing we're going to be talking about are upcoming games we're excited about. Any upcoming games you're excited about, Big Shrek? Anybody else out there? You're welcome to throw in on the chat. What games you guys excited about? Give you guys a second to hit that chat. Oh, thanks to subscribe. You don't know? What kind of games do you normally play? Like RPGs, RTSs, shooters, Call of Duty as an example, Fortnite. Um, do you play games at all? You just like surfing YouTube and you're like, these nerds are talking about stuff. What are they talking about? Well, I know that I was really excited. Oh, in Rocket League, nice. Yeah. Okay, FIFA 20. All right. All right. Yeah, no. So you might be interested to know that the Call of Duty Cold War is coming out. I'm not even sure when, but it's coming out. I think it was announced a couple days ago, if I'm not mistaken. Let's find out. Of Duty Cold War. Is 2020 being teased to death enough? Okay. Call of Duty. I don't want to watch a trailer. I just want some news. Um, blah 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 blah. So Activision. Okay, so apparently it's supposed to be releasing in just a couple months, but they're not willing to show it off or something. Um. Anyway, and then what else do we got going on? That's is on this cool little list. That I mean, that's fair. I don't know. Like Rainbow Six is definitely a little bit more tactical than like the Call of Duty franchise. I don't know if there's any other like tactical shooters like that. What do you think of Valorant? Have you looked at that at all? That's supposed to be like Siege meets like Overwatch or something crazy. I haven't really played it. I've watched a couple streamers on around uh, play it. Okay. Um, let's see. Oh, the I guess the Did it? I don't know. I still see people playing it all the time on the streams, especially on Facebook. Yeah, no, Apex died hard. Poor Apex. I've heard some good things about Apex too, after they got over some of their weirdness. Um, but yeah, I don't even know. February 2019. Let's see. Is there like active player base number in this website that I can find?
I am back.
Oh, hello, God. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that Valorant's dead quite yet. I think that it's still hanging on. I still see people streaming it all the time. Facebook.
Oh, Valorant? Yeah, I always see people on there.
Yeah,
I think that's what Shroud was playing when he came back.
maybe. Yeah, no, it's not that. I I can't really get into Fortnite. It's just not my cup of tea. But it is a cool game. I think it's a cool game. I think it's a cool idea, concept, and all that stuff. It's just not really my thing. There was there was like a fantasy based Fortnite that I was playing briefly that I keep meaning to go back to and play more of.
Oh, that beta that we were in?
Yeah.
That thing gets frenetic when you're in a battle.
Yeah.
You have to really know your stuff, because it just all of a sudden it goes from like really slow to like, holy crap, the world is on fire.
Yeah, Spellbreak, that's what it is. Yeah, Spellbreak's crazy, and
Yeah, it was a good battle royale.
yeah, no, I would like to actually jump in and try more of that, just because I like the combination of the spells you can do in it. Um, but Jared, your camera's still off. If you have meant to turn your camera back on,
that works. I'm making some coffee, so here in a minute I'll run and get a cup, but
okay,
I shouldn't be too long.
But yeah, so Jared was nice enough to put some up and coming games that we're excited about. I'm actually kind of interested by Cyberpunk 2077. We have Halo Infinite on this list, Call of Duty Cold War, which I've already mentioned, PS5 and Xbox. Oh yeah, we've already kind of talked about the consoles, but I'd love to talk about those again. And yeah, so I don't know. What's your take on this? Slash, do you have any others that you've thought of since you put this short list together?
Well, definitely the absolute top of my list is Cyberpunk 2077. Been waiting like at least 2 years for that.
Yeah.
Since I got really excited about it. Probably like 3 years. No, it's been about 3 or 4 years actually since I've been waiting for that. And I love Cyberpunk. I love the RPG. I like Shadowrun, but I just like, it's not like, if I'm going to play fantasy, I'll play fantasy. If I want to play sci-fi, I'll play sci-fi. And Star Wars is about the most I'll mix sci-fi and fantasy together usually.
Yeah.
And so Shadowrun is like, I can get excited about it, but not for very long. But Cyberpunk is probably my favorite setting of all time.
Okay.
And just like the concept of Cyberpunk in general. So the Cyberpunk RPG is really fun. They just released Cyberpunk Red, which is the newest updated version of the Cyberpunk 2020 RPG, which is super awesome. And it just got me even more excited about this game. And CD Projekt Red, from everything I've seen, it looks like they're just hitting it out of the park. Just read an article today about character options. So you pick your class when you start the game, not like a fighter or something like that, but like literal class. Like, what is your social class? And you've got outsider, street urchin, or socialite, like wealthy person. So if you're an outsider, like even the poor people in the city see you as beneath them. And then you have the poor people in the city, and then you have the wealthy, like small percentage that run the city. And when you pick your starting class, like your social class, it changes how you view the game. Not only how people interact with you, but how you view the game. So I might be playing this game 3 times to play as each class, because it might be a literal different game playing each time.
That'd be really fascinating.
If you play as an outsider, you don't even start in the city. You start literally off in some podunk, like collection of rundown buildings out in the
Yeah.
desert. And then you have to get to the city. Like, you don't even, like, if you start out as like the wealthy person, it's like, all right, here you go. You got all this money, you got the best gear. It's like, you've got the best training. You're the best, like the city is yours to own. And like, so if you start as an outsider, it's like, you don't even start in the city. It's such a cool concept. And I don't know. I'm like constantly torn. I'll read like 3 lines of an article and be like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. I'll shut the article down because I want to be surprised when the game comes out, but I also want to maintain my hype. So it's like constantly like going back and forth.
Yeah. So for me, like I've heard a lot about Cyberpunk and Cyberpunk 2077 and all that jazz, and I haven't actually played any of the Cyberpunk stuff. I love Cyberpunk and I love steampunk and I love all those like hybrid flavors. I love the hybrid flavors of like fantasy and science and technology and magic and like steam technology with magic and like like and steam technology doing way more than it should be able to because of magic and all. Like I love that kind of stuff. What I've seen of Cyberpunk and its world, mostly through artwork and stuff, it looks really fascinating and interesting. And I would love to get my hands on Cyberpunk 2077. And I'm actually kind of excited in one way to get a hold of it because I have literally no preconceptions whatsoever. Like I don't have any kind of hype. I don't really have like any. I'm not like super thrilled about the game. Um, which to me, and I guess I'm extra bizarre because I have like 4 layers of me, right? Like the 4th layer of me is like I'm super excited that I have no idea what the fuck's going on here. Zorlax the gamer, welcome. We're talking about Cyberpunk 2077 and just kind of upcoming games we're excited about. Thanks for the subscribe. So yeah, so I'm kind of excited for Cyberpunk 2077 on that front because I literally don't know anything about it. That's what excites me about it, and everybody else is really excited about it. So like, I'm really interested. Yeah, Zorlax, if you have any games that you're looking forward to, please like go ahead and throw them in the chat and throw your thoughts behind it or in front of it, or in it, on it. That'd be great. Love that. But so I don't know. I at the same time though, I'm kind of scared of it because despite like being fairly removed from the hype of it, it has been delayed again and again and again and again. And
Yeah.
and I'm those kinds of games frighten me because then like they're either going to come out and they're going to be phenomenal, right? Like what Blizzard used to do back in the day when they were a good company is they would cancel delay a game or even a straight cancel a game if it didn't meet their standards. And then when we finally got the final release, yeah, maybe it was still needed some polishing and fixing, but it was still such a phenomenal game. Um, and so like it could really go either way. Like it could just disappear into the dusk, or it could come out and just still be hot trash. Um, so I will probably not pick it up on the first month release, and I would probably wait for the powers that be to decide how it's supposed to
Yeah.
how it
Well,
looks.
one of the things to alleviate one of your fears is that the game was finished like a year ago. They've been basically spending the last year on polish. It was actually supposed to release like a long time ago, and they've shown a bunch of journalists like, "Hey, come sit down and play a few hours of the game," and
Okay.
like just we're gonna put you in front of a computer and you just play and tell us what your thoughts are. And they consistently for the last year have been walking away being like, holy crap, no, this game like is amazing. And they flat out said like, no, the game was done like a year ago. But we felt that it did not stand up to the quality that CD Projekt Red has, which obviously they're, the Witcher series, every game comes out and redefines the next generation of what quality is going to be required of games. And
Yeah.
so they basically said like, oh yeah, it was a year ago, and they showed a finished basically product a year ago, and or like 8 months ago, and basically they said nope, we felt that it wasn't ready to be released, and the few months that we had scheduled for our time budget for polish wasn't going to be enough, so they keep delaying it because they're like, no, we can do better, which is the problem CD Projekt Red's always had.
Yeah.
Like I watched an interview with a guy when he's talking about The Witcher 2 or The Witcher 3, and he said the problem he always has is if it were up to him, none of the games had ever been released because they're never good enough. and that's how they treated The Witcher 2, and that's how they treated The Witcher 3, and those both like literally redefined gaming
Yeah.
for that genre. So I really trust them until they go the way of Blizzard. I kind of see CD Projekt Red reminds me a lot of old Blizzard. And so, like, I don't think they can do anything wrong as long as they keep their current vision. And until that changes, and they go the way of Rockstar or Blizzard, where
Yeah.
they just figure out a way to make infinite money off of one game that's like 10 years old.
Well, and it's
And
not even
so,
like even when Blizzard had World of Warcraft making them hand over fist money, they still didn't decay as a company and really until Activision started managing to get their fingers and feet into the how the
their
day-to-day running of the company.
sticky toes, their
Yeah.
sticky toes and everything.
So like as soon as like the head staff of Blizzard departed for one reason or another, there's a lot of theories flying out there. I'm not gonna really get into any of them. I have my own personal theories of just they got tired of dealing with the crap from above. But like that's again just a theory. And they have interviews and stuff. If you guys are interested in that, you can go find them. But regardless, they left, and so now it's just a whole new regime and a whole new approach, and Activision has so much more to do with their day-to-day running. And I feel like that's what's really affected them, and that's where they lost that's kind of where they lost their soul. No, seriously, like that's what it is. No, that's the soul of the company, right? Is their vision and their determination to make something great and fun. And it sounds like CD Projekt Red has that. So we'll see. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's Rockstar had the same problem recently. The guy who helped make the company.
That's a beautiful question.
There's a new one that just came out. That let me look it up real quick because I can't think of the name right now, but it's on the front page of Steam and it's actually free right now on Xbox Game Pass for PC and Xbox. And it's called Grounded.
Oh yeah, Grounded,
brand new survival game. It's in early access right now, but from the little bit that I played of it, it's really awesome. And so I shaved my head since the pandemic started. I don't get haircuts anymore. So I have no hair to reveal.
I can do a hair reveal though, because I don't think you guys.
Yeah, CJ can do a hair reveal. But yeah, if you're looking for survival games, Grounded is really fun. You basically play as 4 kids that went through a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids moment, which if you don't know that reference, basically these kids get shrunken down to the point where ants are like bigger than them. And you basically have to you're living in your backyard, but it's like this like super crazy environment because you're so small and you have to like build these build your forts and build weapons and try to survive and stuff like that. There's a story that goes along with it. You can play co-op.
Yeah, and I think the cheapest way to get a hold of that game right now is through Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah, definitely Game Pass. It's free right now on Game Pass.
So
that is fun. You can play with your friends, and honestly, it looks awesome to me. I played a little bit of it. We were planning on playing it, but then it turns out that there's more games out there than time to play them all, and so I kind of got put on the back burner. But it's definitely still there. It's still in early access, so it's not even like technically done yet.
No, I definitely want to sit down with you and play that at some point in the near-ish future, but we'll see what we can do. Well, we mostly play on our computers. I think we both have most of the consoles. But yeah, I play most of my games on my computer. Yeah, Grounded. I can get a link for you and drop it in chat.
Yeah, if you play on PS4, it's not available on PS4 right now that I know of because I think it's one of Microsoft's second-party publishers. So like they develop for other things and it's on Steam and stuff too, but I don't think it's on PS4 as of right now. But that's not to say it won't be in the future because it's still in early access right now. I don't know what that means. Like 7 days to 7 Days to Die? It's still in early access, and that game came out in 2014 or 13. So.
Yeah. So how much does our various setup cost? Like our streaming setup here. What my setup, I will have to do some quick rough mental math.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab my coffee real quick.
For sure. My total setup probably is sitting close to $2,500. Between my like lights and my audio setup. actually with including the Stream Deck and the graphics card that I somehow came up on for free, I would probably push that number closer to 3K. Because if I were to buy my current graphics card brand new, it's like a $700-800 graphics card because it's the 1080 Ti. So, um, oh, taking off, Sorlax. Well, thanks for swinging by and hanging out and all that fun stuff. Yeah. So I mean, I'm pretty happy with it. It does the job. There are some things I would still like to work on and upgrade, but those will have to wait until I'm either making money again or making money doing this, which I mean, that's okay. Right now, I'm just doing it for fun. Definitely working on making it a thing, but I'm also sure. Oh, okay. Yeah, Jared just stepped away to grab his coffee, I think. So, how much is your setup, Big Shrek? Um, yeah, I feel that though. Actually, on that note, I one of my friends was decided they didn't want their PlayStation 4 anymore, and I managed to snag it from them for like $100. So that was pretty nice. So now I have my own dedicated PS4. Um, so exciting stuff. So now I use my PlayStation 4 controller to play on my computer too, um, because my Xbox controllers are the first generation Xbox controllers, so they don't work. Fun fact: if you have a first generation Xbox with the original controllers, those controllers are not compatible with your computer, like at all, as far as I can tell.
I'm back.
I mean, you're in the chat. Hit us. What's going on? Like, welcome back, Jared. Your coffee looks like milk, you monster.
Because it has Irish cream in it.
Nice, yeah, yeah. There it is. Yeah, Xbox One S. I don't even. I think I literally have the first generation Xbox. And I think I have a PlayStation 4 Slim now, but I also have the first generation PlayStation 4, which my sister has pretty much abducted, which is fine with me. I cracked my big toenail on my desktop. Like your toenail, your desktop's big toenail, or your foot's big toenail when you hit your desktop.
You sounded so confused.
That's rough, man. My desktop's at my feet too, and I've kicked it. Mostly my pinky toe. My pinky toe has suffered a couple times. Okay, I suspected, but my brain really wanted clarification because it's a butthead. But anyway, so Cyberpunk 2077 does look really interesting and fun. Halo Infinite is delayed. I didn't even know that Halo Infinite was supposed to come out.
So it was supposed to be a launch title with the new Xbox Series X, and they released some gameplay footage, and it just looks god awful. It looks so freaking bad, and it's not that it's bad. It's just the artistic direction they chose to go with, along with the graphic options that they went with, make it look like it's really bad. Like I watched a really good Digital Foundry video on it, and they broke it down and showed how no, it's not actually really bad graphics. They just chose the wrong lighting and the wrong like engine options to use with it. Because basically it's kind of a more
will that
like
mean
cartoony, but it's like it's less realistic looking.
Yeah, so will that mean that this will be the first Xbox in like recent memory to not have a Halo release, basically?
Yeah, so the Xbox is getting released with or without Halo, and Halo is being delayed till next year. So unless something crazy happens, they're releasing an Xbox without Halo.
That's crazy. What do you guys think of that? Like, I mean, honestly though, like I don't know how old you all are, but like I literally cannot remember an Xbox release where Halo didn't accompany.
Yeah, it's always been tied to the console.
That's
It's Halo is as much Xbox as Mario is Nintendo.
yeah.
And
I mean,
so
I bet you somebody lost their job over that. I can almost guarantee you somebody lost. Like probably not just one person. Um.
but I think, I think it's better to have a better game,
Oh
even
no,
if it's
absolutely.
delayed.
I 100% agree.
But
Like,
it definitely sucks for people that were excited about the new Xbox with the new Halo this
yeah.
Christmas.
I just
And
also am
so
like blown away. Like that is it's like that. It's like when you go to that restaurant that you really love and it just like closed over the weekend or something random, and you're like, what?
that's the freaking worst.
Yeah.
Or you find out the one day off you have a week is now the day it's closed. You're like,
Yeah.
when did this happen?
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
But yeah, so that's crazy. Sony has and they've basically given a release window of like a couple weeks now for the Xbox. So it's definitely being released this year. PS5 is still supposed to be on track for release this year as well. But with the pandemic and everything, it's all kind of up in the air. Um
All
you
right,
have a good one,
Zorlax. Have a good
Zorlax?
one.
But yeah, that's crazy about the new Halo. But I mean, if you saw the video, like Digital Foundry did a really good job of objectively looking at it and showing that it wasn't bad graphics. It was like the graphics are fine. It's just the artistic direction they went with makes it look like it's really crappily made because of the way the graphics is set up. And it also didn't help that the demo they showed was at sunset, which is like the worst setting to have if you are using the lighting settings they're using. So it's kind of one of those like a series of unfortunate events that were also mixed with some like ineptitude.
Yeah.
So but yeah, so that'll be coming out next year now, it looks like. I'm sure they'll have something on the new Xbox when it comes out. They'll have the Master Chief Collection at like 4K or whatever. But yeah, the Halo Infinite will not be coming out, or Halo Infinity. I may have just written that down wrong. It might be Halo Infinity. But yeah, and that new Call of Duty Cold War that they won't shut up about, it's coming out too, obviously, because it's 2020. We haven't had a Call of Duty yet. And
For
so
real.
for some reason, people are really excited about it. I don't really follow Call of Duty. I like Call of Duty Deathmatch because it's just like it's about the closest thing you're gonna get to like a really polished, just generic, like from where I'm from, old school deathmatch experience. And
Yeah.
so like because Quake isn't really a thing anymore. Unreal Tournament's not really a thing anymore. You can still play Quake in Unreal Tournament, but um, it's like Call of Duty is easier to just hop into and play. And they kind of, I think they're kind of moving to like a more permanent model because Call of Duty and Warzone are two completely different games, but they both share the same accounts and same leveling features and stuff like that. So I don't know if this new Cold War is going to like really mess with that much. The only thing I care about is the Black Ops games, which is what this is it's part of the Black Ops series. They usually include zombies, and if this one comes with a new zombies, I might check it out just because I love the zombies games. And CJ, I might have to like try to get you in on that too because
I'm
they're
down.
really really fun co-op games.
I really like the zombie game modes actually. Like it sounds stupid because it was definitely like overused and abused, but I actually
Yeah,
genuinely feel like Call of Duty was one of the few that was like done well. Um
yeah,
so yeah, I'd be down for
that's like
that.
all I care about. That's the only thing I care about. It's like,
Yeah.
will Cold War have Cold War, um, like Spetsnaz zombies? That's all I care about. I
Yeah.
want to shoot. I want to shoot some Cold War zombies.
Yeah, no, so the that'll be cool and interesting. I'm definitely that would if they have that game mode, that would be super cool. I would probably have to get in on that. Well, it is roughly well, wow, actually, it's almost 1 where I'm at. So it's what, midnight your time, Jared?
Yeah, it's close to midnight my time.
Um okay, all right. So I just pulled up this the Halo Infinite trailer finally, and yeah, they definitely went with like a more like cell shaded almost.
Yeah, almost like not quite cartoony, but because the lighting quality and shadows and stuff are a little bit more realistic than cartoony graphics normally have. But it's definitely an interesting direction.
Yeah, I don't think it's entirely bad, and I mean I'm just watched the first like minute or so, but so I've not seen any like really bad lighting choices yet.
You don't get to tell me what to do.
Oh,
It comes from weird things. So like look at the weapon in its hand, for example, and you can see how using a solid approach to it, it doesn't have the same, it doesn't react with the light the same because they're using a different approach.
yeah,
Like 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 here's a good picture. I'll let's see. I'll toss this in the Discord chat.
I mean it definitely looks really good. They definitely went with like kind of almost a more Fortnite-ish look, but not
Yeah,
necessarily,
definitely.
not necessarily as far as like what Fortnite's doing.
So like you can see here, this picture I dropped in here, how the gun and light is okay because you could see how they have some like bump mapping and stuff like that to showcase like light reflection,
Yeah,
especially on the edges of things. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. But then when the gun is in shadow, it just looks like a flat texture with no three dimensions to it. Like you would not be faulted if you thought the top of that rifle was flat with just a bump map texture on
yeah,
it
yeah. No, these
instead of supposed to look 3D.
so the two things that I noticed right off the bat is the gun in shadow, the display is definitely doesn't look like it's inset, and then honestly, the chamber handle or whatever that is on the left for a long time I thought that was just part of the gun until I looked at
Yeah,
the other side.
because they have
And
no relief, so it's hard to
yeah,
tell three-dimensional space, which is
yeah,
the whole point of like accurate lighting. It's supposed to help showcase three dimensions better,
yeah.
and it just loses it right there.
Oh, and then you can really see it if you pay attention to like the exhaust right under that the display, like under the
Hmm.
barrel, the exhaust between like the handhold and the grenade launcher and the actual barrel of the gun. Yeah, you can super see it there. That's interesting. Um,
Yeah,
so it does look like they have something that's like pretty done. So it shouldn't hope it probably won't take them long to knock something back together correctly because I
yeah. I
can
think they're just reworking the graphics pretty much because it
yeah
should be finished the game.
yeah. So I mean if they because if you're only having to fix like a few hundred assets or whatever depending on how you generate the game and all that stuff, I can't imagine it like being delayed by that long, honestly,
Yeah.
depending on the size of the team. But it might also fall within like engine constraints, so they might have to be they might be fighting other battles, you know. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Well, lighting is a huge thing. Here's another screenshot from that video. Like you could see the rocks on the right don't give off shadows on themselves.
Yeah,
That's like a big no-no in gaming from like the last 10 years. It's considered really lazy programming because like you see it like remember back in the day, it's like when you're looking for items, it's easy to find them because they were bright.
hmm
And it's like that's because the item had its own lighting scheme that was lighting the entire item as if it was under spotlight, even in dark environments. And that's
yeah,
actually what they did with a lot of the objects and the Halo Infinite map. So like rocks and like debris and like barrels and stuff like that all have their own individual global lighting, which it sounds really technical, but basically at the end of the day, what it means is you're going to have a bunch of stuff in the world that are not lit by the sun or lights or explosions or anything like that. And when you're playing the game, it stands out really like you might not know why, but you know something's wrong with the way it
yeah.
looks.
But also just look at the how different that gun looks in those two screenshots.
Yeah, it's a huge difference.
That's insane.
It,
I
have a
wonder
good one,
if
Zorlax.
I wonder if I can. I'm gonna try to capture this display real quick so I can show people. Yep, that's exactly what I want. So like, look at this. Like these two guns are like completely different. These aren't even the same gun. Like they are literally the same gun, but they do not look the same. Um, that's gnarly. Or
Yeah,
here's the first one.
it's real bad.
Was a little harder for me to spot. I'm not gonna lie. Like it took me a couple seconds of looking back and forth. Um, but I think that these you can really see it in the display, but also right here in the side of the gun between like the upper part of the gun and the handle slash grenade launcher area. You can see what we've been talking about. Pretty gnarly stuff. Definitely somebody's head is on somebody is in trouble. um,
Yeah, someone did like it ended up becoming basically a meme.
yeah,
Um where it's like let me see let me see if I can find
ha-
that meme again where it was really funny. They showed like kind of the same area and like the between the Halo from like 2007 and like Halo Infinite, and the 2007 one looked way better.
really, that's terrible.
Let's see, where is that at? I don't know. I'll look for it. When I find it, you'll see it. It's so bad.
Yeah,
Or like
so
people comparing it to like Crisis from 2013 and
well,
stuff like that.
right? Like that's what like the graphics in it don't necessarily look bad, but you're right, the lighting's all off. Like not like I wouldn't say it's like overwhelmingly off. Like you're only really gonna notice it like most people are not even gonna notice it like intentionally. They're gonna be like something's weird here. Um, I've gotten done a couple few theater classes now, and so I had better an easier time noticing it. You probably would have had to like hold my hand much more 6 months ago. But oh yeah, look at that. That's
And it's part of it's because the new Halo technically is using difficult more difficult graphics technologies where you're trying to dynamically generate all the lighting and stuff instead of just having a pre-lit bump map on the weapon itself. So like on the left side here, back in the day, if you wanted something to look really well lit, you had to like draw it as a really well lit gun, and then
yeah,
you put it on the gun, and then you just hope people didn't notice that when the lighting changed, the gun didn't coordinate with that. And with the new one, the gun changes with the lighting, but it doesn't respond accurately. And so that's why it looks worse now than it did back then. But what it's doing now is dynamically updating its lighting instead of having a static lighting model. But it's like there were Super Nintendo games that looked better than Nintendo 64 games. And
yeah,
it's because when you move to a new technology, if you don't do it really well, it's very obvious. It's super obvious when you watch like a movie from 1995 that had CGI.
yeah,
It's like part of it's kind of doing that, but it's like should we really forgive that? Because I mean, we were talking about Cyberpunk. Like Cyberpunk's coming out this before Halo Infinite's coming out, and Cyberpunk looks like Cyberpunk, and Halo Infinite looks like Halo Infinite. It's like, okay, should we really give them that excuse at this point? And it's like, I mean, they're game devs; it's their product; they should be able to
yeah.
release whatever they want. But it's like, well, I'm not going to rush
I
out
don't
and
know.
buy
Like
it.
I feel
So
like though I feel like there's some definite like faux pas that happen in the Infinite thing, and I don't know. It's interesting. It's bizarre. I think that like I'm glad that they received some backlash on it because like these studios can't just be releasing whatever the heck they want. Like they need to be releasing quality, right? Like there was this period of time I feel like early like 2010 to like 2014 where like yeah there was a lot of great games that came out in that area, but there were also so many like games that could have been good had they literally just done like 2 more months of work. you know,
yeah,
like finish the storyline, add better lighting, make it so that my hand doesn't clip through that box every time because that's weird. Just I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, the so this kind of like these lead us all these new games and stuff lead us to our inevitable conclusion of this particular section, which is the PS5 and Xbox um Xbox One Series X. Uh, um I'm really excited for both of these. Honestly, I have not really been following like the intimate news on either one. I'm not gonna lie. Um, they both sound like amazing systems. They honestly both sound like PC. Um, the PlayStation 5, from my understanding, has some unique technology in it where the solid state drive that it's using is supposed to be faster than pretty much anything available to most consumers. Um, I don't know what guns the Xbox One is bringing to the table exactly, but I have heard that the PlayStation 5 suffers from some bottlenecks that the Xbox One doesn't have. But Sony's played that game before, right? The PlayStation 3 had some bottlenecks that the Xbox didn't have at the time.
Yeah, the
And they did.
PlayStation 1 was literally half the um, bus width of the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
And
Um,
so,
and yeah, again, they did just as well, if not. I think the at the end of the day, I think the PlayStation actually won that one.
oh, definitely. PlayStation hands down beat the 64. They couldn't even figure out how to streamline textures without them being warped for the first 2 years of development.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, there you have it. I don't know. So it could really go either way. I am pretty much like I've told a couple of people who asked, like I pretty much play all my games on the computer. I do own most of the consoles, and I love playing games on those consoles. There's certain genres of games that I just can only really play on console. Like honestly, like most JRPGs, most turn-based RPGs like that. Any game where I'm gonna be sitting down, like Dragon Age Inquisition, I cannot imagine playing that on my computer. Like, would I do it? Absolutely. If I owned it on my computer, I would play it on my computer. But honestly, like it's one of those games where I just want to sit on like my couch with like my little hot cocoa or coffee or whatever I'm drinking that day, and with like a little blanket and my dog being like, "Why are you inside?" or "Why aren't you playing with me?" you know, and, and be playing Dragon Age Inquisition. Like that's just like those are the kinds of games that I want to play on there. Um, so well, Jared and I both played X or Xbox. We actually didn't own,
everything.
yeah, everything pretty much, but like um we really bonded over the PlayStation and the Nintendo
Yeah.
64.
And so I grew up with the original Game Boy and the original NES. I had a bunch of friends that had the Atari 2600
Hmm.
and used the Apple II and usually DOS and occasionally like Windows 3.1. And so
So
kind of DJ kind of came from the same background, I think.
yeah, basically, I didn't have gaming or anybody with a computer really. I had all of my friends that had fancy consoles like that were my dad's friends that were basically grown up children. So I hung out with them. Um, and one of them lived upstairs because we lived in like an apartment complex. So I would go up to his house and like knock on his door as like 5-year-old CJ and be like, "I want to play Mario." Um, but so that was fun and cool, and so I definitely started on the NES and then got the SNES as my first personal like I really remember getting that system. Like we had an NES, I don't really remember getting it. I was too young to really appreciate getting it. I do remember owning it and playing a whole bunch of games on it. My friend Sean, who lived next door, would come over all the time, and then I would also go over to his house and we'd play his NES all the time, like Power Rangers and everything else on there. And then we had the SNES, which is my first like official console that my dad got me that he stashed in the van outside because I don't know when he got it. He must have got it like the day before and just didn't have time to wrap it or something. I have no idea. Regardless, went outside, got that, was super stoked. Uh, um, and I think my first game on there was Donkey Kong Country. I'm pretty sure I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it was Donkey Kong Country. And at one time I had all the Donkey Kong countries on SNES. An unfortunate story later, I no longer have them, um, which is disappointing because those actually are very rare games. The first one less so, but like the third one is like insanely rare. Then one Christmas when we were living up in Tampico, which is where I met Jared, I got my Nintendo 64, and I don't know which kid didn't get Christmas that or didn't get a Nintendo 64 that year and didn't get Ocarina of Time because I'm pretty sure just everybody did. That got a Nintendo 64 for Christmas that year, but that was my first game on there. Played the ever living daylights out of that. And it wasn't too much longer after that that I met Jared and we bonded over Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Final Fantasy effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, like I came from a family that was very anti video games, and so my natural inclination was to love video games, and so I did everything I could. I went to every friend's house that had a console to play. Every time we went out to Pizza Hut or like a restaurant, I would go to the arcade because back in like the 80s and in the 90s,
Even in the 2000s,
most restaurants,
yeah,
most restaurants had an arcade, so you get like a couple of dollars, and you
especially
go
if they
play
were
the
a pizza
arcade.
place. The pizza places just like
Yeah.
had like always had an arcade.
Oh, and they had the best ones too. They had
Yeah.
RoboCop. They had, they had all the basically anything that was like borderline, probably not okay for children to play. They would have it at the pizza places.
I mean, the one that we're over here, Wood Pedal Pizza does kind of not like a big one, but they do. Yeah, we actually have a little pizzeria just up the street from us that has like 2 or 3, like 4 or 5 actually. Like
It's
the
so
old
nice when you see
arcade
that. Like,
arcade systems, and they're a newer pizza place, so it's not it's a trend that hasn't gone away entirely. But I mean, obviously with this whole pandemic thing, like, I'm sure those things aren't making any money.
oh yeah, a
Um,
lot of people using Pac-Man machines now.
yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what he has too. He has like a Pac-Man machine, and like
Oh yeah,
I don't remember what the other one is, and there's a couple stand-up ones that I don't have no idea what the games are off the top of my head. Thanks, Big Shrek. I hope to do these just chattings again. I'm going to try to do these like once a week, like even after a game session. Maybe not quite as long as this one, but something similar. And normally we're streaming games. Jared does after dark streaming usually, and he'll often join me on my streams. So keep an eye out for those too. It's good seeing you around. Thanks for hanging out and stuff. But yeah, so I don't really know the like exact technical specifications of either one of these consoles, but honestly, they've basically reached the point at this point where the only advantage they have over like a PC is that they're specialized technology, right?
yeah.
Like, and that's the only advantage that consoles have ever really had over a PC is that they're specialized technology. So oftentimes they'll run a brand new game much better than like a computer will for a while until the computer gets newer gear. And so I don't know. I like literally the Xbox or the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox both sound like they have the RDNA 2 like big Navi cores in them from AMD. So like, and that it sounds like they're gonna drop their stuff at the end of the month or in the next couple months to beat Nvidia and the consoles to the market. So like, I don't know. I think that despite what people think and want, I think that the actual like console that is a console is pretty much dead at this point because those are computers.
It pretty much is. I think Nintendo and Sony are the last ones to really have it. Microsoft, so the Xbox Series X everything runs on UWP, which is Windows framing architecture. It runs natively in Windows 10, and it ports very easily over to other applications. And so the Xbox Series X is just a computer. That's all it is. I think it even runs a certain type of Windows, just like the Xbox does. And so, but it's not going to be like the same as a desktop. But they could, if they wanted to, turn it into a desktop very easily. That RDNA 2 chip in there for the graphics is awesome because like computer graphics, the high-end PCs will usually be the first ones to have them, and then you have this big gap where you have the technology but very few people are utilizing it, and then a console will come out with that same technology, and all of a sudden everyone in the world wants to have it in their games. And so ray tracing, which is 100% the thing that's going to define this generation of gaming when it comes to graphics, because it is such a complete difference in how games look with just a lighting from ray tracing. And now that RDNA 2 is coming out, it's going to be in the consoles. It runs ray tracing. It's since it's in the Xbox Series X, it's going to use the DirectX 12 API for it, most
Yeah.
likely, or something similar to that, which means that when the games come out on Xbox, they're going to come out on PC at the same time. Xbox doesn't have exclusives. And so every game that comes out on the Xbox, it will also be available on PC theoretically. And if it has ray tracing on the Xbox, it should also have ray tracing on the PC. And the ray tracing is what's going to give a game leverage on a console. So,
Yeah. So,
so
Jared,
it's like really cool.
do you remember 2,000 years ago when we were hanging out in high school and in front of like the first Xbox that we sat in front of, and like a week later, I'm pretty sure it was me that was like, why are there Xbox exclusives? That doesn't make any sense. It's all Windows.
Yeah.
Because
Hey,
like
we're finally
yeah,
there, CJ. 20
because
years
like
later.
somebody somewhere finally realized that they're actually just shooting themselves in the foot, right? Like, yeah, some people might buy that game twice for the Xbox and the computer, but like most people aren't going to do that. I have tons of games on my consoles that I refuse to buy on my computer because they work just fine on my consoles. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting to me that like they've finally gotten around to it because like especially Windows, like you could be an Apple fanboy and you could have a Mac or whatever, and like now you have less reason to buy a Mac because like why would I buy a Mac if like the new Neverwinter series on Xbox is also could play on my computer if I had a Windows computer.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't even have to buy it twice. Sometimes you
Yeah,
just buy it one time and play it on
the
either the console or the PC.
yeah the last official news source I read on that was that it was basically a one-time purchase and you could play it on your console or on your PC or
Mm-hmm.
your Xbox. So like
It basically acts like the Game Pass.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I'm really kind of like that right there makes me love Xbox this generation. Like I've been a pretty hardcore PlayStation fan. I'm not gonna lie. Ever since PlayStation One finally won me over after my 200th hour of Tony Hawk and Final Fantasy IX. Um, uh, like I just like I have pretty much been a PlayStation fanboy since then. Like yeah, we've been on our ups and our downs, but like like I think this generation might be the first generation where I'm more excited about the Xbox than the PlayStation.
So I'm the opposite. I'm less excited about the Xbox and more excited about the PlayStation.
So
Um,
I guess I'm not necessarily excited about the Xbox itself. I'm more excited about what it kind of represents and the
well,
precedences that it's setting.
I 100% agree with that. That's why I'm less excited about the console. I'm excited for other people to go buy the console because
Yeah,
I want them to be able to have basically a really affordable gaming computer in their living room. Or if they want a really affordable gaming computer next to their budget PC that they built for $200, plugged into the monitor at their desk, and they can switch back and forth between the Xbox to play high resolution games and then switch over to their computer when they need to like surf the web or whatever.
yeah,
Um, the thing that excites me about the Xbox is it means I don't have to like have an Xbox to play Gears of War 6. It
yeah,
means that I can play Gears of War 6 on my computer with the graphics that my computer can pump out. And what excites me about PlayStation is Sony is slowly coming over to that way of thinking. They tested the waters a little bit with Quantic Dreams, which is their second party studio. Like they don't really own Quantic Dreams. It's not like one of their, because Sony has like this huge range of second party studios. Like Nintendo kind of goes first party only, and Nintendo does everything in house.
hmm
Microsoft goes third party everything, and they really don't have a lot of in house. Or they have Gears and Halo, and they have Rare, but they don't have a lot of stuff. But like Sony is like all second party. They have a bunch of basically exclusive contracts with all these companies like Naughty Dog and Quantic Dreams and stuff like that. Well, Quantic Dreams put all their games out on PC over the last year and a half,
yeah,
and that was really fun. And then Death Stranding, a PlayStation exclusive, made specifically for the PlayStation from the very beginning, came out on PC a year after release, which was huge. And Sony basically said they're testing the waters with Death Stranding and Horizon Zero Dawn. They're both on the same engine, so it's pretty easy to put them both on PC. If you can do one, you can do the other.
yeah,
And so They put them both out on PC, and they're doing very well with sales from what I've read. And that's exciting because Sony says they're going to think about. They said they don't know if they're going to go back and put like God of War and Spider-Man and Last of Us on PC,
Yeah.
which I would love.
Oh god, I would
But
love Last of Us on
oh
PC.
my god,
That's actually one of the few
right?
that I would pick up. Like I was literally just about to say, like I will not pick up Horizon Zero Dawn because I already own it. I just will not
Yeah,
do it. But like if like Last of Us came out on PC and Last of Us 2, I would definitely be picking those
yeah,
games
I would
because I
buy it
both.
for the third time because I
Yeah.
bought it the day it came out on PS3. I bought it the day the remaster came out on PS4, and I would buy it the day it came out on PC if I could. But with the PS5 coming out, I'll just buy a PS5 this way. I don't have a PS4 anymore. But I want to play God of War. I want to play Spider-Man. And I really want to play Last of Us Part 2, most of all, out of all those games. I also want to play the third Eco game and a couple other exclusives that I missed out on because Sony has, I think, more exclusives than Nintendo.
No, they do at this point
And
because
so, yeah,
Nintendo has officially cracked the case on their system where now they're pretty much accepting pretty much everything. I think the only exclusive they really have are pretty much the Mario franchise and the Zelda
yeah,
franchise, and that's
just their first party stuff, basically. Mario, Donkey Kong, Kirby,
oh, and
Icarus,
Pikmin
Pikmin. Yeah, it's
and
all.
Pokemon.
So
So
all
four.
their basically just their first party stuff, which is all the stuff they do in house.
Yeah.
I guess Pokemon technically
Well,
might be considered
yeah.
second party,
Pokemon's
but they're owned by Nintendo,
isn't
Game Freak at
Pokemon
least.
Rare or who does Pokemon?
Pokemon's Game Freak,
Game Freak. That's right.
and Game Freak's an in-house Nintendo studio basically at this point.
I
It's like
mean,
it's Game Freak's kind of like Naughty Dog for
yeah.
Sony.
But yeah. So no,
So
but I think you're right that like as far as like franchise go, like full on franchises like Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, etc. I think PlayStation does have more exclusives.
yeah, and so I'll be picking up a PS5 probably this Christmas time frame or maybe afterwards,
Okay.
um, just so I can get back to some of those PS4 games that I didn't get to play.
Yeah.
Uh, but I kind of hope moving forward, I hope this is the last console that has exclusives for Sony. I really hope Sony kind of gets on the same. It's just I think it's better and like with the whole streaming thing, it doesn't even matter consoles anymore. Like who cares about consoles? I can get PlayStation now and play PS3, PS4 games on my PC anyway. So with streaming coming out, it's kind of blending everything. And I
Yeah.
think we're seeing these blurred lines now between what we thought were like hardcore like camps, and now that we're seeing like things kind of get mixed up a little bit more, I would like to see companies like branch out. I don't think Nintendo's ever going to do it, but Nintendo is such like an outlier that I mean, Nintendo is never going to compete with Microsoft and Sony because what Nintendo does is Nintendo. Like no one else does what Nintendo does, and so like you can't really compete with Mario. Like you could try, every company has, and every company has failed, and so it's just not gonna. I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon. And so I don't mind buying Nintendo consoles because honestly, they innovate technology so much when they do that anyway that I'm kind of supporting new tech when I do that. But with Sony and Microsoft, I 100% support them putting all their stuff on PC anyway because I would prefer to just play on PC because, like, I would love to play The Last of Us 3, on a PS5, but I would rather play it with better graphics on a PC.
Yeah. Well, and then like like one of the things about consoles that I've always loved and adored is like somebody like me who typically can't afford a super nice computer without like a lot of assistance per se. I can if I were to able come up on the couple few $100s for the new PlayStation 5, um, then I have access to all these games that I can't afford, and I think that's where the consoles will never die. Right? Is that they're
Yeah.
relatively easy access for a good solid gaming rig that you don't have to worry about like trying to go out and buy a new computer for, figure out why my computer's not working now. Because if your console's not working, it's under warranty, and you take it back
Yeah.
to like game wherever or send it back to Sony or whatnot, and you just like get a relatively fast turnaround. There's obviously tons of horror stories out there, so but like
And I think that's a really crucial part of the market to have available. It's like when we talk about the cheap gaming. Like you can do things like go out and buy a console and you can get like the PS4 right now. You can get a used PS4 for probably like $150 or less if you look on
I, I
Craigslist or eBay or something.
I mean, I got a used one for $100 with the controller,
Yeah, and
and
so
on
like if you get it like person to person on Facebook or something like a classifieds, you could probably get it for like even less than that maybe if you're lucky.
yeah, and I mean honestly, like the guy didn't even sign out of his PlayStation account on it, so I had like Red Dead Redemption on there and like free Netflix and all this other stuff. I just reformatted it all because I was like, I have my own stuff, I don't care. But like if I was a slightly more sleazy human, I could totally be doing free Netflix and and free Red Dead right now.
And with the PS5 coming out, PS4s are just gonna drop.
Yeah.
And
I
you
mean they
know,
already have.
by
Like
yeah,
as soon as like they were like PlayStation 5, all of a sudden the PlayStation 4 went from like, an average of like $300 to $400 to like an average of like $100 to $200, I feel like. Like yeah, brand
yeah,
new they're still fairly expensive, but like slightly used or basically brand new. Like the one that I got, like he literally I think he's only played it like maybe 30 hours and then like watch Netflix on it for like another, let's say, 100. Like that's like no use
yeah,
for a PlayStation. That's like 100.
yeah.
That's like
That's like
barely
2 weeks of usage.
yeah, that's like barely 200 hours of use. Like whatever. Like my old PlayStation 4 that I got when like PlayStation 4s first came out, my buddy Fang got me. If he's still watching, thank you so much for that, Fang. It was magical. Um, like bro, that has literally thousands of hours in it. Like I can't even like I've watched so many movies, so much Futurama on it, so much Netflix, and just played so many games that like I can't even tell you how many hours I have on it. Like I've gone through 3 computer upgrades since then. Like and it still works super solid. Yeah, like yeah, the loading screens are a bit of a pain, but like it's the first gen PlayStation 4, like whatever. So, I
And
don't
I
know.
I kind of hope consoles never go away, or at least like they kind of stay in spirit, because I feel like that's a really important part of it. Like I remember, like you were talking about Final Fantasy Tactics, and I remember back in like, oh, I don't even know when this was, but I remember when I was a kid, and I had just gotten a Game Boy Advance. I had saved up from doing a bunch of odd jobs for neighbors, and I bought a Game Boy Advance, and I borrowed someone's Final Fantasy Tactics when there was like A2, the Final
Hmm.
Fantasy Tactics on the Game Boy Advance. I remember I was wrapped up in a blanket, the fire was going, there was a cat like sitting next to me sleeping, and it was like a blizzard outside. It was hardcore snowing. I remember sitting by the window using the light and just playing it all day. And I feel like that's like when you talk about sitting on the couch wrapped up in a blanket with some hot cocoa and your dog. Like that's kind of what consoles represent. Is
Yeah.
it's like it's a part of being home. Like a console, it has a completely different feel sitting and watching your TV or sitting on like a handheld console than it does sitting at a PC.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't want that to ever go away, because I feel like that's a really important part of gaming and just like the whole spectrum of like gaming culture. I feel like that's a really important part of that whole culture. It's just that comfort of sitting at home, wrapped up in a blanket, or maybe even not have a blanket. Maybe it's freaking hot. You got the doors open, you got fans going. You're sitting there in like your shorts and like just fanning yourself while you wait for the load screen to finish, and like that's awesome. That's such a cool part of just growing up, and I hope that never goes away.
I know I super agree, and I honestly like as of right now, I do agree with your sentiment that like that paradigm is kind of in danger, but I don't think it'll ever actually truly go away, right? Because like first of all, we have Nintendo, who is like, no, we're gonna do mobile gaming and we're gonna do like handhelds and we're gonna do it right, and suck it, nerds, because we have the Switch here. Like this is their like pinnacle of like this is what they've been going for the last 20 years, right? This is like literally what they've been working towards. Like you see it with
Yeah,
like this looks like a Wii U in some regard because
yeah.
that's was the original idea of the Wii U, right? Um, but the technology just hadn't caught up with the concept yet. So we have Nintendo there for us. We have all the streaming services, although it's not quite the same. I think that like to an extent it will be the same because with the advent and the progression of the smart TV, like I kind of feel like, these TV makers are going to start providing their own like game controllers here like in the next 10 years. I can guarantee it. Guaranteed with the next 10 years, smart TVs will have their own game controller, and you're going to open your LG box, and there's going to be an LG game controller with your LG TV remote, and you're going to have access to the streaming services, and you're going to just switch over to the gaming service, and you're going to use your LG controller, like guaranteed, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, and right in that same vein, I kind of feel like if consoles do somehow die, if that idea of a console like having the dedicated PlayStation 4 or 5 or 6 or 12 or whatever does actually go away, I bet you I will almost bet money again that what will happen is you're going to have Sony releasing their TVs, their Sony TVs with PlayStation. It's going to be like
Hmm.
built-in PlayStation 236. You know, like I don't think that like consoles will truly go away. I think that they're going to be changing forms probably after this generation. They're going to be we're already moving towards more streaming and stuff like that. It'll be really interesting to see. I sincerely doubt that gaming though wrapped up with your Game Boy. 'Cause I had a Game Boy. It was one of my first consoles after the NES. I think maybe I had a Game Boy first. I don't even remember, but I totally had. You saw it back in the day. I had that little gray Game Boy, little fat guy.
Yeah, the
I think
brick.
yeah, the brick. I think I still have it around somewhere, unless it disappeared along with all my Super Nintendo stuff. Um, but um, anyway, I don't think that that's ever really going to go away because we do also have it just right here in the palm of our hands every day, right? That's my camera will let me show it. Your phone is kind of the it's not quite the same because it's a phone, but like we have all the mobile gaming and then all the streaming stuff on here as well. Like I actually have Final Fantasy Tactics on this phone right now. Um, so I don't know. Like I don't think it'll ever truly go away. I think it's just going to change because it's too close to everybody's heart, and the spirit of it is too strong. People want access to that kind of thing. That kind of thing where they can sit on the couch and settle in with their hot cocoa or coffee or whatnot, or cold drink, cold iced tea or whatnot if you're someplace hot. Like like I don't know, it's not gonna go away. Anyway, guys, I think that's pretty much all we have for you tonight. I think so much. Thanks for hanging out and watching, and Big Shrek and Zorlax. Thanks for hitting the chat, and Justine as well. She's already well gone, but thank you for hitting the chat. Um, Land of Unknown Wonders. Also, thanks for stopping by. Trueback Tour 16. Thanks for stopping by and the subscribe. Thanks Jared for supporting us on Patreon and participating in all these streams.
Oh yeah, it's definitely become a very looked forward to part of my week.
Good,
So
good.
I enjoy it.
I would love to do more of these awesome just chatting videos. This was even a lot more fun than I kind of expected it to be. We got a lot more engagement than I was expecting to have, so this was a lot of fun. We'll have to try to do it like schedule an official like couple-hour event on some nights or something. We'll figure it out. We'll talk more about that later. But again, thanks for watching, guys. Check all of our links out. I'm sure it should be in the comments, but if it's not, go to streamerlinks.com/zerofoxcng coffee and games. Um, right here you have some of our logos and our link right there above Jared's head. So have a wonderful magical night and thanks for watching.